to the creator, now bowing to the created. Now I can stand bolder, my heart and mind are sober. Looking to see a sign, my staff turned to a cobra. With magic they did the same, refused to fear his name. Hearts remain hard till their firstborns were slain. The knowledge you have is vain. Chakras and kundalinis, Kabbalah, tree of life, witchcraft and genies, mystery school teaching. Of course it gotta be right, you know it all. Somebody gain eternal life. Were you there when he made the earth? When he formed man's bones, only used the dirt? Were you there when he made the planets? Please tell me how he did it if you understand it. Were you there when he made the heavens? And all their array rested on the seventh. All you have is speculation and theories. Gave us basic commands, we comprehend them clearly. What's the purpose of living? What's the purpose of dying? Who do you believe when everybody is lying? How do you wait fire? Count the sands of the seas. Tell me how many stars throughout the galaxy. Some things only God knows. If questions linger in your mind till your eyes close. But here's something you can understand. Fear Yah and his commands, the duty of man. While you still have a chance, fear Yah and his commands, the duty of man. While you still have a chance, fear Yah and his commands, the duty of man.
So, I was thinking about something, y'all. Because it comes up. Yes, I can do that. Give me a second. Barcelona. That's the link for you. What chapter are we going to read in? Several, but yes. So Jubilees. Starting 8. V and 3 eyes. V is 5. Every eye on the right side of I is an addition of 1. We're getting a lot of random texts once we switch phones. The numbers I don't recognize. All right. Okay, fine. We're gonna go ahead and get started. I think we're close enough to settle. Y'all close enough to settle? Yes. Good. All right. So let me get rid of this real quick. I'm gonna read something to y'all real quick that I want y'all to keep in mind as we're going forward. I talked to y'all about this book before, right? From Babylon to Timbuktu. Rudolph R. Windsor, he was a professor. He did a lot of studies into antiquity, specifically Africa and the Middle East. You want me to turn it down? as it relates to the kingdoms over in Africa. This was a common book among people who, like for us, as we was coming out of the church and kind of digging into our history and wanting to find out more about who we were, a lot of so-called Pan-Africans and people who call themselves of the culture had this on their shelf. Don't know if they read it, but a lot of people had this on their shelf. In most every African bookstore I ever went to, I'm saying that because that's what we call them. Most of the time there was an African that worked there. It was usually, you know, a brew or somebody that called themselves Egyptian, Kemetic, or something like that. Most every African bookstore, or Afrocentric, better way to put that, Afrocentric bookstore I've ever been to has this book on the shelves. Very good book. If you read it, very easy read, not long, not lengthy at all. Very interesting. I want to read this to y'all, and I just want you to think about this going forward. Because there is some confusion, and it's not by accident. There is some confusion. We make jokes sometimes. We say, you know, we all know all skin folk ain't kinfolk, right? In the earth, in history, there was a point in time when just about everybody who walked earth was melanated. So we did not identify each other by black or white, right? That's a new thing. And because we identify as black or white nowadays, it's real easy for us to look out and see, oh, all of them over there don't like us over here, and presume that all of us over here are the same or have each other's well-being in mind, when that's not actually the case. Well, y'all making lunch? You almost done? Okay, we're done. And so I'm gonna read two real brief excerpts from here, from chapter 2, which is called The Origin of the White Race. But specifically, it says here, by 378 AD, the Germanic tribes were on the move. They were known under these names: the Lombards. You guys remember some of these names from school. The Burgundians, like Ron Burgundy. The Franks, the Saxons, the Angles, the Jutes, the Ostrogoths, the Visigoths, the Swedes, and the Vandals. These 10 Germanic barbarian tribes settled all over Western Europe and intermingled with modern nations of Western Europe as we know them today. All these tribes were the descendants of Japheth, or were mixed in with Japheth some kind of way. The ancient people did not classify races according to skin color. That's the point. Like the modern nations of Europe and America do now. The ancients, including the Greeks and Romans, identified people according to their national or tribal names. They used names such as Visigoths, Vandals, Saxons, Ethiopians, Carthaginians, Jews, Arabs, Persians, Babylonians, Egyptians, and Moors. They did not use the term Negro, which is a modern term, to refer to the black races, or the word Caucasian to refer to the white races. Dividing the world along a color line was an idea that originated with white supremacists in Europe after the Renaissance. So that's what I mean when I say that's a modern thing. If you ever hear people say, and I know we've said it several times, that race is a social construct. It's something that was created fairly modern in times in order to classify people differently than what we used to classify people. It's easy to confuse you if I can get you to classify people as white or black. Make sense? Okay. The Europeans did not have any great civilization immediately after the fall of Greece and Rome. Second part I want to read. It says, during the Middle Ages, the black nations of Africa and Asia, and the greatest political, economical, educational, and military influence in the world. At this time, Europe existed in a state of darkness for 4,000 years. This is historical fact. In the 17th century and later, Europe began to emerge out of the slough of ignorance, and certain Germans and others conceived of themselves as belonging to a superior race. I'm sure we can have conversations, or you can look on History Channel and read about, the Enlightenment period and where and how these people began to pull themselves out of the Dark Ages. It's really interesting stuff. But there's a guy here named Jonathan F. Blumenbach, a German. He lived from 1752 to 1840, and it says he was the first to divide humanity on the basis of skin color. Historical fact, right? For your own reference. Up to this time, no such attempts had been made. His classification set up a color line to the detriment of latter generations. Mr. Blumenbach classified 5 chief races of mankind: the Caucasian, the Mongolian, the Ethiopian, the American or the American Indians, and the Malayan. Moreover, he considered the Caucasian to be the original race. That's what he considered. Blumenbach, the anthropologist, named the whites after the Caucasus Mountains. These mountains are situated between the Black and the Caspian Seas because he thought the purest white people originated there. Now here's what I want to mention as we read that. Remember we read about the mountains that those Melakim descended on? Same area. Same area. Okay. Blumenbach was a racist, and so was J.A. Gobineau. A third man by the name of H.S. Chamberlain wanted to advance the supremacy of the white Nordic race and its culture. These men attributed physiological value and importance to race. This was racism, and it led to a horrible, vicious racial philosophy and to the persecution of the Jews in Nazi Germany. I think he knows what he's doing. He wrote a book that was for mass consumption. He knows who we are. T.R. Garth wrote in his book, Race Psychology, in 1931, any disposition on our part to withhold from some race the right to a free and full development must be taken as an indication of rationalization on the account of race prejudice. He's saying they're trying to rationalize racism. And such an attitude is inexcusable in an intelligent populace. So again, just going back to the understanding that the dividing of humanity along color lines was for the purposes of spreading racism, was for the purposes of spreading white supremacy. And I say that before we get into this, because we're going to read about the continuation of these lineages stemming from Noah, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And I need you to understand that even though we're talking about those who follow the law and those who chose not to follow the law and those who are of one priesthood or the other, whether they are children of light or children of darkness, we are yet still not talking about color. So for people to look at this thing that we believe in and say, this is a racist doctrine or something like that, it was never about skin color. As a matter of fact, in this day and age that we're talking about, if there was white people on the earth at that time, it was probably like this many. Not many at all. And how and where they originated, another topic. But let's pick up from there. Y'all follow me on that? Does that make sense? Hallelujah. Okay, so Seeking a Priesthood, Part 5. Today we're going to deal with ancient Babylon, Nimrod's Babylon, not Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon. And last week we read about the Table of Nations and the sons of Ham. We looked at the importance, importance of that lineage. We discussed Cush, Mizraim, and Cush's son, and Ham, Mizraim, and Ham's son, Cush. Read my notes here. So we're picking up in Genesis 8. Let's start there. Genesis chapter 8, going to read verses 8 and 9. Genesis chapter 10, to set this up, verses 8 and 9. What I say? Man, I'm all messed up. I told y'all I didn't get no sleep. Genesis 10, this will help. Can y'all see this? Genesis 10, 8, and 9. I'll try to keep up there. Whenever you're ready. Told for posting in the room, sis. Appreciate that, as usual. Whenever you're ready.
And Cush brought forth Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before Yahuah. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yahuah.
Okay, now we read over this before, and I said keep that in mind. We're gonna come back to that. Before we go further, I'm gonna ask you, what was Nimrod's melanation level? What do you guys think? Very melanated. He was a dark brother. I need you. Oh, okay. And so if we're looking for kingdoms of antiquity, there was ruled by black people. Well, Nimrod had one. It was one of the first. It was one of the greatest. And it says that he was a mighty hunter before Yahuah. Therefore, it began to be a saying, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yah. Now, that's how it reads in the book of Genesis. And from reading it like that, it don't seem like he was really all that bad a guy, right? But it reads a little bit different in the book of Jasher. So let's go over to Jasher chapter 7. And we left off here last week. We're going to pick it up there. Jasher chapter 7, verse 23. Jasher chapter 7, verse 23. Whenever you're ready.
And Cush, the son of Ham, the son of Noah, took a wife in those days in his old age. And she bore a son, and they called his name Nimrod, saying, at that time the son of men again began to rebel and transgress against Yahuah. And the child grew up, and his father loved him exceedingly, for he was the son of his old age.
Okay, so at that time, his name was called Nimrod because at that time they began saying that the men again began to rebel and transgress against Yahuah. That don't give us much. Let's keep going. Let's jump back to 10. There's a little something there. Let's pick up with Genesis 10. Genesis chapter 10. We're going to read 10 through 12. Genesis 10. Through 12 for those who are needed in here. Okay, whenever you're ready.
And the beginning of his reign was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. From that land he went to Ashur and built Nineveh, and Rehoboth, and Calah, and Rezin between Nineveh and Calah, the great city.
Okay, so remember those cities. He had not only Babylon, but Erech, Akkad, and all of those that she mentioned. And we discussed motives and thoughts before. But let's look at what happened with Ham's children leading up to Nimrod's kingdom with that in mind. Because there was a lot of stuff that went on that led up to this that we need to be aware of. In Jubilees 8, I'm giving y'all just a refresher. In Jubilees 8, we read about how Noah divided the earth among his 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, and it was with the oath. And then in chapter 9, we're going to read here that even after dividing the earth between Ham, Shem, and Japheth, he then divides Ham, his portion, among his sons. So now Ham is dividing Ham's portion. You with me? Jubilees chapter 9. Let's pick up in verse 1. Jubilees chapter 9. I apologize. Yeah, 9. 5 plus 4.
So that's 1x.
5 plus 4. V plus 4 i's. V equals 5. I equals 1. 5 plus 4. Okay. Jubilees chapter 9. We're going to read 1 and 2.
And Ham divided amongst his sons.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, you good. Jubilees 9, 1, and 2. Go ahead.
And Ham divided amongst his sons And the first portion came for Cush, towards the east, and to the west of him Mitzrayim, and to the west of him Put, and to the west of him, and to the west thereof of the sea for Canaan.
Good.
And Sheri also divided amongst his sons.
Shem.
Is that Shem?
Shem.
I say Sheri. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Shem also divided among his sons. And you can stop there because we're not right now digging into that, and we're not right now digging into Japheth. We now just want to deal with Ham dividing among his sons, right? So Ham divided among his sons. First portion came to Cush toward the east, and to the west of him Mitzrayim, and to the west of him for Put, and to the west of him, even further west, toward the sea was supposed to be whose? Canaan's. Canaan. So remember, y'all look at Canaan, you're gonna see Canaan like that, and that's all the same individual. So depending on what book you're reading, what translation you're reading. Let's skip down to verses 14 and 15. So we're going Jubilees 9, 14 and 15. Jubilees chapter 9, verse 14 and 15. Whenever you're ready.
And thus the sons of Noah divided into their sons in the presence of Noah their father. And he bound them all by an oath.
Okay, so just emphasis there again. He bound them by oath when we read it in Jubilee 7. So now he's binding them again. As they subdivided their territories among their sons, he subdivided again. Go ahead. And bind them again.
A curse on everyone that sought to seize the portion which had not fallen to him by his lot. And they all said, so be it, so be it. For themselves and their sons forever throughout their generations till the day of judgment, on which the master shall judge them with a sword and with fire, for all the unclean wickedness of their errors, wherewith they have filled the earth with transgressions and uncleanness and fornication and sin. So
not only did he bind them by an oath, but they all agreed to it. They said the same thing as, let it be on us and our children, right? For us, for our children, forever throughout the generation, till the end, until judgment. Which means they understood what Noah was saying and they agreed to it. It was very clear, right? We agree? No taking nobody else's land. Jubilees 10. Let's go Jubilees chapter 10, verse 28. We setting something up here. Jubilees 10. I'm going to start with 28. And we're going to read through, let's say 36 for now. What'd I say? And Ham and his sons. Let me go back and look.
This reminds me of chapter 10 and 17.
I might be wrong. What I say, Jubilees 10? 28? Yes. Jubilees 10, 26. X, IX.
Let me open this in the super quick.
Okay.
I'm in the second scroll. This doing some strange stuff.
Those sacred scrolls moving in mysterious ways. Jubilees chapter 10, 28. I can read it until you get it if you want. And it reads, and Ham and his sons went into the land which he was to occupy, which he acquired as his portion in the land of the south. And Canaan saw the land of Lebanon. Pause right there for a second. I posted in the Facebook group, and I emailed you and a couple of you a picture of a map. If you can, and if you would like to, no pressure, you can pull up that map. It's in Facebook, fam. I know y'all were driving, so I didn't try to send it to you. In the Kodesh Conversations group. just to get an idea of, as we're talking about Lebanon, as we're talking about Jordan, where those places are on the map and where they are in relationship to what's going on. You can sit there if you want to. Okay, so it says Canaan was looking at the land of Lebanon to the river of Egypt, right? So you can look at that map and see where those are in relationship to each other. That it was very good. And he went not into the land of his inheritance, which was to the west. This is to the sea. And he dwelt in the land of Lebanon, eastward and westward from the border of Jordan and from the border of the sea. So now you got Jordan, you got the Jordan River, you got Egypt, and it says he decided he was going to go and dwell in the area that was east and west of Jordan and in Lebanon. 30. And Ham, his father, and Cush and Mizraim, his brothers, said to him, you have settled in a land that is not yours, and which did not fall to us by lot, didn't fall to any of us, none of Ham's descendants, by lot. So you so far off that you ain't even in our land. That's how far off you are from where you're supposed to be. Lost my place. Oh, do not do so. I'm in verse 30. Do not do so, for if you do this, you and your sons will fall in the land and be cursed through seditions. For by seditions you have settled, and by sedition will your children fall, and you shall be rooted out forever. We often ask ourselves who Ham is today. I know the Christian church teach that we're Ham, even though we don't believe that. But this says that because of what Canaan did, them people going to be over there under sedition and rooted out forever till judgment. They're going to be under some kind of oppression. This oppression that they're going under can be looked at as if they fallen under the curses if you don't understand why they're going through what they're going through. But here it says they clearly stole something that did not belong to them, and that's why they're getting done the way they're getting done. So we have to understand why people in the earth are having the things happen to them that are happening to them, right? Through prophecy. That's how we understand this accurately, through prophecy. So he says, 31, dwell not in the dwelling of Shem, for to Shem and to his sons did it come by their lot. Cursed are you, and cursed shall you be beyond all the sons of Noah. So even more than all the sons of Noah, if they do wrong, by the curse by which we are bound, we have bound ourselves by an oath in the presence of the set apart judge, and in the presence of Noah our father. But he did not hearken to them, and dwelt in the land of Lebanon, you can see it on your map, from Hamath to the entering of Egypt. And he and his sons until this day. And for this reason, that land is named Canaan. Now you know, because you read it for yourself, why the land that we call Israel today, every other place you read it in your scriptures, they call their land Canaan until the name was changed to Israel after the Yehudim actually took the land back. All before that, it was called Canaan. This is why. Because they occupied that land and it did not belong to them. So don't y'all think that that might cause some feelings among Shem's sons? And don't y'all think that also might cause some feelings among Canaan's sons to be overly protective and say, you're not going to get this back from me? I know it's yours, but I took it and I dare you to try to come take it back? Motives and thoughts. Now they just think it's theirs. We've been here. You've been here, but you stole it. You stole it so long ago, you don't even remember you stole it. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Then, 35, Japhet and his sons went toward the sea and dwelt in the land of their portion. And Madai saw the land of the sea, and it did not please him. And he begged a portion from Ham and Asher and Arpachshad. Arpachshad, y'all remember that name? Arpachshad was of Shem's lineage. Arpachshad was the one of Shem's lineage that found the writings after the flood, transcribed them, and then hid them so that Noah wouldn't find out, right? So now, it says here that Japheth said he wasn't happy with what he had, and he begged a portion from them, including Arpachshad, who found it, or we said that, who found those writings, and his wife's brother. That was his wife's brother. And he dwelt in the land of Media, near his wife's brother until this day. So Japheth dwelt in the land of Media. Remember I said that is the same name that you think of when you talk about Medes, M-E-D, the Medes that joined up with the Persians. You talk about the Medo-Persian Empire. That's the father of the Medes, Madai. And that's what it says. It says Media was named after their father, Madai. That's how that name came to be that name. So now we got Japheth dwelling next to his brother-in-law, and his brother-in-law is the one who found those writings. You think that's significant? Japheth is dwelling next to his brother-in-law, and his brother-in-law is the one that found those writings. Think about that. Let it sink in. Jubilees. I think I'm on Jubilees. Let me double check. Yeah, Jubilees chapter 10, verse 1. We're going Jubilees 10. We're going to read 1 through 14. Jubilees 10, 1 through, what did I say, 14? 14. Jubilees chapter 10, 1 through 14. We're still getting our bearings about us, fam. See what's going on here. Whenever you're ready.
And in the third week of Jubilees, the unclean demons began to lead astray the children of the sons of Noah, and to make to err and destroy them. And the sons of Noah came to Noah their father.
Pause 1 second for me. Because I want to point out that what we just read, when we looked at Ham, son Canaan, stealing that land, we're reading about something going on in the physical. We read about some wickedness going on. This was something that Noah said he was going to be cursed for if he did. We agree about that, right? So that's something happening on the physical in the earth. And the reason I want to back up now and go to Jubilees 10 and start at 1 is because I want to show y'all that there was a spiritual element to this going on that we just read about the physical side of. We can always help our understanding to get that foundation, that for everything that's happening on the physical, it's happening on the spiritual as well, or first, right? Okay, so let's read that.
And the sons of Noah came to Noah their father, and they told him concerning the demons, which were leading astray and blinding and slaying his son's son. Mm-hmm. And he prayed before the master and said, Yahuah of the spirits of all flesh, who has shown mercy unto me, that has saved me and my sons from the waters of the flood, and has not caused me to perish as thou didst the sons of perdition. Mm-hmm. For thy grace has been great towards me, and great has been thy mercy to my soul. Let thy grace be lifted up upon my sons, and let not the wicked spirits rule over them, lest they should destroy them from the earth. Now
we read here they use the word grace, but in our house we usually use mercy when we read grace, because our understanding of what the word grace originates from. But go ahead, 4.
But do thou bless me and my sons, that we may increase and multiply and replenish the earth. And thou knowest how thy watchers, the fathers of these spirits, acted in my day.
So now he's confirming the same thing that Enoch said. That these were the watchers, and the watchers were the fathers of these spirits, right? So we read the watchers were condemned and bound, but now we're dealing with the spirit of their children. Confirmation, go ahead.
And as for these spirits which are living, imprison them and hold them fast in the place of condemnation. And let them not bring destruction on the sons of thy servant, my power. For these are malignant and created in order to destroy.
These spirits are malignant and created to destroy. Go ahead.
And let them not rule over the spirits of the living, for thou alone canst exercise dominion over them. And let them not have power over the sons of the righteous from henceforth and forevermore. And the master Yahuah bade us to bind all.
Okay. Go ahead.
And the chief of the spirits, Matissima, came and said, Master, Creator, let some of them remain before me, and let them hearken to my voice, and do all that I shall say unto them. For if some of them are not left to me, I shall not be able to execute the power of my will on the sons of men. For these are for corruption and leading astray before my judgment. And for great is the wickedness of the sons of men.
So we're reading the accuser of men. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Would y'all agree as well? Yeah. We're reading about the accuser of men. And so Noah has prayed this righteous prayer in order to protect his sons. His sons came to him and said, we need help. These spirits are attacking us. And Noah even says that they are blinding them. So we're talking about spiritually blinding them, I believe, as we're reading that, blinding them and killing them. Some of it literally, I believe, and some of it in the same way that the adversary murdered Adam and Eve in the garden, by lying to them and by causing them to do things that would have them be found guilty in judgment, right? And so Noah, being the righteous priest in the earth, according to the order of Melchizedek, has prayed this righteous prayer. And this said that it was good, because the Melachim that is recounting this story to Moses says, and the master Yahuah bade us to bind all. Noah asked it, and the master said, do it. Noah asked it, go do it. Here come the chief of those fallen spirits, or the watchers, say, oh, whoa. Master, creator. So he's giving reverence, right? Which means he even respects that the master is the creator, and he has to come to him for permission. We told y'all this before. We read about this before, even when we read in Job, and even when we read in the book of Psalms. He says, let some of them remain before to hearken to his voice. And the key here is, if he doesn't, he will not be able to execute the power of his will on the sons of man. That's his job. He said, for these are for the corruption and leading astray before my judgment. He knows he's going to be judged. It's his job to cause as many as he can to go with him to destruction. The separation of the wheat from the tare, he's helping do it. He has a mission, he has a job. It's important to understand this, because I got a coworker that talked to me about somebody he knows that deals with spiritualism. I'll phrase it like that, because I don't want to single anybody out. And he asked me what I thought about that. And I said, well, it's real. Like if we're talking about spirits and stuff like that, it's real. I'm not going to tell you that it's not real. But you have to understand that, yes, spirits are real. Understand where they come from. So now we all understand Genesis 6, the flood account, the children of the watchers, wicked spirits. These are for the destruction of mankind, right? And so if you know people that are doing that, sometimes they don't understand that these are malignant spirits that they're dealing with. And they're dealing with these lying spirits that are lying to them and telling them that they can somehow help them. They can somehow further their elevation in this world, right? That's part of that priesthood. Would you agree? That's part of that priesthood. If you come to us, we can help you elevate in this world. And so we got to get the foundation of that understanding solid to understand as you dealing with people what they actually saying to you, and it'll help you be able to navigate individually, you know what I'm saying, in the earth. Okay, let's go. 9.
And he said, let the 10th part of them remain before him, and let 9 parts descend into the place of condemnation.
So all this wickedness we got on the earth today is only 1/10 of them running free. Imagine what it was like before the flood when all of them was running loose. Right now, only 1/10 of them running free, and look at the wickedness that we're looking at. Wickedness upon wickedness. Go ahead.
And one of us he commanded that we should teach Noah all the medicines, for he knew that they would not walk in uprightness nor strive in righteousness.
This is the righteous Malachim. Again, recounting this event to Moses, and he's writing it down. So he said, one of us was told to go ahead and teach Noah these things. Go ahead.
And we did according to all his words. All the malignant evil ones we bound in the place of condemnation. And a 10th part of them we left, and that they might be subjected before Satan on the earth. And we explained to Noah all the medicines of their diseases, together with their seductions, how he might heal them with the herbs of the earth. And Noah wrote down all things in a book, as we instructed him concerning every kind of medicine. Thus the evil spirits were precluded from hurting the sons of Noah. He gave all that he had written to Shem, his eldest son, for he loved him exceedingly above all his sons.
Beautiful. So let's pause there. So they taught Noah what, Rib?
Herbal medicines, herbal healing, remedies.
For what reason?
To cleanse them of demonic attack, which is also known as sickness.
So due to Noah's sons not walking righteously, Noah understood that his sons would deal with sickness and plagues and dis-ease, and therefore Noah was given remedies to heal them of their dis-ease and their sickness when they were plagued by these demonic spirits. Okay, beautiful. Now, second part of that, Noah gave those writings to who?
Shem, his oldest son.
Noah gave those writings to Shem, who would have been next in line to instruct, to heal, to make atonement for those who came under his rulership if he was the next in line in that priesthood, the order of Melchizedek, right? Righteous, ruler, priest, not of the Levitical order, walking according to the power of endless life, which is equivalent with deliverance or salvation. We agree?
Yep.
Now, Cush and Ham warned Canaan against doing these unrighteous things, stealing that land that didn't belong to them. It belonged to Shem, right? So that made Cush and Ham righteous, right?
No.
Oh no?
No.
Yeah, that didn't make them righteous. Okay. So let's see about that. Noah obviously, through prayer and prophecy, considered Shem to be his most mature son. I would agree with that, his most mature son, because we read in scripture how Shem was not his literal oldest son. So I don't know if this was worded that way purposely or mistakenly, but maybe it was, because I would agree with this. Noah saw him as, y'all got children, sometimes your older children ain't necessarily the most mature or capable ones, and you be like, I think that one can handle this. I think, you know, your children, they all different. They all got their good, they all got things they need work on, right? And so here it looked like Noah looked at his oldest son and was like, I'm gonna put this in Shem's hands, right? How do we know that? Well, he was the one that he was pleased with, that he was gonna dwell in the land that was called the most set apart land, where Yah's dwelling place was. He was pleased that that was gonna fall to Shem's lot, right? We read that. He also gave him the book that he wrote, all the cures for the ailments of the children of men, and that what they would suffer from because of their disobedience. He gave that to Shem as an inheritance. So we can see by Noah's actions how he viewed Shem among his sons, right? Let's read about Ham and Cush and see how much more righteous they were than Canaan. Or if those 10th part of those spirits had at that point found a target to use as vessels in the earth already, just as Ha-Shatan requested, because he needed a people to help drag whoever he was going to be able to drag with him. He needed human vessels in order to help influence people. Let's go back to the book of Jasher, chapter 7. Jasher chapter 7. I'm going to read 23 through 29. Jasher chapter 7, verses 23 through 29. Whenever you're ready.
And Cush, the son of Ham, the son of Noah, took a wife in those days in his old age. And she bore a son, and they called his name Nimrod, saying, at that time the sons of men again began to rebel and transgress against Yahuah. And the child grew up, and his father loved him exceedingly, for he was the son of his old age. And the garments of skin which Yahuah made for Adam and his wife when they went out of the garden were given to Cush. For after the death of Adam and his wife, the garments were given to Enoch, the son of Jared. And when Enoch was taken up to Yahuah, he gave them to Methuselah, his son.
Pause for 1 second. The garments of skin that Yahuah made for Adam and his wife were given to Cush. Okay, let's see how Cush got them. I want y'all to keep up with these transactions here, right? As she's reading about them. So Adam had them, and they were given to Enoch, the son of Jared. Y'all keep up with this transaction here. Enoch was taken up, and then what happened?
Enoch gave them to Methuselah.
Okay. Then who?
And then at the death of Methuselah, Noah took them and brought them to the ark, and they were with him until he went out of the ark.
Okay.
And in their going out, Ham stole those garments from Noah his father, and took them and hid them from his brothers.
Pause for a second. What Ham do?
He stole them.
Just like Canaan stole that land, huh?
Thievery.
Thievery. Daggone thief. Just like it the one where his son get it from, huh?
Probably like, I don't know where they at. You ain't seen them?
Hid them from everybody. Didn't tell nobody. Yeah. Then what happened?
And when Ham begot his firstborn, Cush, he gave him the garments in secret, and they were with Cush many days. And Cush also concealed them from his sons and brothers.
So now Cush lying too. Ham stole, lied. Now Cush stole, lied. From his sons and his brothers. He lied to everybody. And then what did he do?
And Cush had begotten Nimrod. He gave him those garments through his love for him. And Nimrod grew up. And when he was 20 years old, he put on the garments. 20
years old, Nimrod puts on the garments. Cush, we just read about Cush, loved Nimrod, the one that he begot in his old age. That's the one he loved the most. That's the one Cush looked at and said, oh, this the one here. We read about Noah doing it. Noah looked at Shem and said, this is the one. This is the one who's going to carry this forward. Cush looked at Nimrod and said, this is the one that's going to carry this forward, right? Okay. Let's deal with this. Let's deal with Genesis 10 and 9. Go to Genesis 10 and 9. Genesis, y'all see this, right? We're dealing with two priesthoods here. Two different spirits in the earth, like we started out with. Genesis 10 and 9, whenever you're ready.
He was a mighty hunter before Yahuah. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yahuah.
Question is, what does that mean exactly? Remember, as we read that before, I said that don't really sound too bad, right? That don't make him sound like a wicked individual. He was so great that the world used as a saying like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yahuah. Well, let's read the details. Let's go back to Jasher 7. We're going to go 30 through 33.
Okay.
And read exactly what that meant when they said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yahuah. Jasher 7, what did I say? 30 through 33. And it's going to give us the details. Whenever you're ready.
And Nimrod became strong when he put on the garments. And Yahuah gave him might and strength.
Pause right there. We had Nicole T, I think it was Nicole T. Latasha, asked about the garments and said, was the garments what gave Nimrod his power and his strength? When we had about that? Well, it said that he became strong when he put on the garments, but then the very next phrase is Yahuah gave him might and strength, right? So it's almost like when we read about, Samson and his hair. His hair wasn't it. It was Yah that allowed him to be strong, right? So let's read about Yah allowing Nimrod to have strength.
And he was a mighty hunter in the earth. Yeah, he was a mighty hunter in the field. And he hunted the animals, and he built altars. And he offered upon them the animals before the master.
So he was offering animals to Yahuah, at least at some point. Continue.
And Nimrod strengthened himself, and he rose up from amongst his brothers. And he fought the battles of his brethren against all their enemies round about.
So now he's starting to separate himself from the pack. Go ahead.
And Yahuah delivered all the enemies of his brethren in his hands. And Yahuah prospered him from time to time in his battles.
Now, this is not a strange thing, right? Yahuah prospered. I want y'all to think about this in context. Every nation that ever took the nation of Israel into captivity or occupied our land, stole us, won in a battle against us, Yahuah prospered them to do that, right? It was Yah who allowed them to do that. So don't think it's a big thing that it says Yahuah prospered him in his battles. It tells you right there also from time to time. Like if it suited Yah's purpose, Nimrod came back victorious. Now among Nimrod people, they was like, "Ooh, Nimrod is a champion." But he was still doing Yahuah's purpose. He was a vessel for somebody. Let's see who. Go ahead.
And he reigned upon the earth. Therefore became current in those days, when a man ushered forth those that he trained up for battle, he would say to them, like Yahuah did to Nimrod, who was a mighty hunter in the earth, and who succeeded in the battles that prevailed against his brethren. And he delivered them from the hands of their enemies. So many Yahuah strengthened us and delivered us this day.
So may Yahuah strengthen us. So what that's saying, as we're reading here in a little bit more detail, when it says, like Nimrod, who was a mighty hunter in earth, does not just pertain to him hunting animals, deer, gazelles, and all that. That's not only encompassing that. What that's saying is Nimrod was a man of battle. Nimrod was a soldier. And therefore, it began to be that when people had children who was warlike, okay, they were saying like Nimrod, because he was warlike. He was good with bloodlust. That was his dwelling place. He didn't mind it. He didn't mind getting his hands dirty. That's what that's saying. Then Genesis tells us this. Let's go back to Genesis 10 and 8. Then is in also, not after, but also. Let's look at this separately. Whenever you're ready. 10 verse 8. Chapter 10 verse 8.
And Cush brought forth Nimrod, and he began to be a mighty one on the earth.
And it says he began to be a mighty one in the earth. We'll read to you guys the definition of mighty one. Hebrews 13:68. If you want to look it up for yourself. The word is Gabori, and I may be butchering that pronunciation. Gabor. Intensive, from the same as H1397, powerful, by implication, a warrior, tyrant. Thought that was interesting. A champion, a chief, to excel. One of the definitions is also giant.
Wow.
Man, mighty man or mighty one, strong man or valiant man. So in that saying that he was a mighty one, I believe that what we see is the beginnings in this stage of Nimrod's life of Nimrod beginning to be worshipped. They were scared of Nimrod. Nimrod was a warrior that was known to not be scared of shedding some blood. If it came down to it, you know, he'd get that wet work in. He didn't mind fighting his brother's battles. And we're going to see what else he did. He definitely had extra strength if y'all allowed him to. And in his mind, as long as he had them garments, he was unstoppable. Let's pick up with Jasher 7. We're going to go to 34. And do 34 through 41. Jasher 7, 34 through 41. Whenever you're ready.
And when Nimrod was 40 years old, at that time there was a war between his brethren and the children of Japheth.
Real quick, when he started putting on the garments, how old was he?
20.
Okay, so now 20 years later, he's still who he is, but something else happened, something changes. Go ahead.
So that they were in the power of their enemies. And Nimrod went forth at that time, and he assembled all the sons of Cush and their families, about 460 men. And he hired also from some of his friends and acquaintances, about 80 men. And he gave them their hire, and he went with them to battle. And when he was on the road, Nimrod strengthened the heart of the people that went with him. And he said to them, "Do not fear, neither be alarmed, for all our enemies will be delivered unto our hands, and you may do with them as you please." And all the men that went were about 500, and they fought against their enemies, and they destroyed them and subdued them. And Nimrod placed standing officers over them in their respective places.
Pause there for a second. So when it says he placed standing officers over them in their respective places, think about like regents, generals, to serve him abroad. Yeah, so like the same thing as like U.S. embassies, or like how there's military stations that are military bases all across the United States, but also on every continent in the world.
Was that the first case of land being conquered? And kind of like what Rome would do to his manager or his governor and all?
Yeah, that's the first time we read about that. Think about this. When Noah and his sons came off the ark, the main thing that he was concerned about with his sons was that his sons would start warring against each other and killing each other like what was happening before the flood. He came off the ark, Noah, his 3 sons, they 3 wives. Y'all family. Why would y'all be going to war with each other? And now here we are just at the lineage of Cush. We already got somebody who was elevating himself above all the other tribes of the earth at this point. And now he's going and fighting the battles of the Cushites against these other nations. But now we already talk about these other nations like they are strange people. These are still their family members. They are other different tribes. They went and settled in different places and built cities. But remember, these was their family. And even here, this particular enemy was of Japheth. So now Japheth was just asking, could he live in some of their territory? And 20 years later, Nimrod was just 20 when he put on the garments. 20 years later already, they going to war against Japheth. That's where we at. Okay, picking up at 38.
And he took some of their children as security, and they were all servants to Nimrod and his brethren. And Nimrod and all the people that were with him turned homeward. And when Nimrod had joyfully returned from battle after having conquered his enemies, all his brothers, together with those whom knew him before, assembled to make him king over them.
Mm-hmm.
And they placed a regal crown upon his head.
Mm.
And he set his subjects and people, princes, judges, and rulers, as is the custom amongst kings.
So now we've gotten to a place now where Nimrod has been crowned. He's no longer a warrior, a soldier plus people. They said, "No, we want you to rule over us." Right? Go ahead.
And he placed Terah, the son of Nahor, the prince of his host. He dignified him and elevated him above all his princes.
Perfect. Now, y'all still got your charts? Y'all still got your charts with Ham, Shem, Japheth, whose lineage, all the way down to, I think we stopped at Abraham. Tell me who Terah and Nahor are. Do y'all remember? And if you don't, write down Genesis 11, 10 through 32, and that's where you'll find it. Genesis chapter 11, 10 through 32. Terah and Nahor is Abram's father and grandfather before his name was changed to Abraham, right? So that's what we're talking about. He did what with Terah and Nahor? Can you read that again?
He placed
Mm-hmm.
right. And he set over his he placed Terah, the son of Nahor, the prince of his host. He dignified him and elevated him above all his princes.
Terah was dignified above all of Nimrod's princes. That's Abram's father. Y'all got that? Go ahead and read Joshua 7:42.
And whilst he was reigning according to his high desire, having conquered all his enemies around, he advised his counselors to build a city for his place, and they did so.
That's it. Let's y'all should know what that city is. Let's read it in Genesis 11. I'm gonna go to Genesis 11 and read 1 through 6. Genesis 11. Let's start here. One through 6. Whenever you're ready.
And all the earth had one language and one speech.
Mm-hmm.
And it came to be, as they set out from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar,
Mm-hmm.
and they dwelt there. And they said each to the other, "Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar.
Pause for a second. Okay, so Shinar is an earlier name for Babylon. If you read in the scriptures translation, or if you're in your eSword, sometimes they'll give you little notes on the side and give you what these cities may have been called at later times, and other little useful notes. That's one that you're going to remember. Shinar, Babylon, same place. Here's my question though. Rib just read in 11:3, they said to each other, "Come, let us make bricks, bake them thoroughly," and they had brick for stone and they had asphalt for mortar. Here's my question. What is the technical name for the people who would be doing that work? What we call them today?
Masons.
Yeah. Who else said something? Was that you? What'd you say? Masons, stone masons, right? That's the actual labor that stone masons do. What'd you say? Yeah, masons or stone masons. So I want y'all to keep that in mind as we're going forward. That's what their job was. They were masons, right? Go ahead with 4.
And they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city,
Mm-hmm.
and a tower whose top is in the heavens,
Mm-hmm.
and make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered over all the face of the earth."
Okay.
Then Yahuah came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built.
Uh-huh.
And he said, "Look, they are one people, and they all have one language. And this is what they began to do.
Mm-hmm.
And now they are not going to be withheld from doing whatever they plan to do."
Pause. Okay. They said to themselves, "Come, let's build us a city whose tower is in the tops of heaven, and make a name for ourselves." And when Yahuah gets wind of what's going on. He says, they are all one people, they are all one language. Here they are, they got all this power to do anything they want to do. Remind me of Adam and Eve in the garden. They had the choice of anything in the garden except one thing. And he says, they are all of one language, and this is what they begin to do. So I want to know at this point, what is it that they're doing? Because we don't really get the detail. What is it that they're doing that was so bad? We see that they're building a tower and that they're building a city, and they said, let's make a name for ourselves, but there's got to be more to that. Go ahead with 7 through 9. Genesis 11, 7 through 9.
Okay. Come, let us go there and confuse their language, so that they do not understand one another's speech.
Uh-huh.
And Yahuah scattered them from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. That is why its name was called Babel, because there Yahuah confused the languages of all the earth, and from there Yahuah scattered them over the face of all the earth.
Okay, so Babel is derived from a Hebrew verb which means to confound or to confuse. That's why it's called Babylon. Now, I was telling you guys about some videos that we used to share with people. It's kind of like, you know, extracurricular research. And recently I was saying that there's a playlist on the Project Wake Up Jacob YouTube channel that deals with Atlantis. And it talks about, I think the subtitle is The Secret Mysteries of America's Beginnings. Does that sound right? The Secret Mysteries of America's Beginnings. And then there's a second part to that documentary. It's called Riddles in Stone. Riddles in Stone. Write that down for you. Riddles in Stone. Okay, so in that documentary, the secret beginnings, the secret mystery beginnings of America's beginning, mystery of America's beginnings. I'm butchering that. Beginnings. It talks about the founding of America and why America was chose and what the goal was when they chose America to found this nation, right? It talks about the founding fathers and how they were deist, that's a word for you to look up. Deist, but it also talks about how most of them were Masons. And in the second part of that documentary, Riddles in Stone, it goes over the architectural layout of the key cities of America. So Baltimore, where's the Liberty Bell is in Baltimore, Washington, all of those key cities where they laid out the streets and the buildings and all that. It talks about why those streets are laid out the way they're laid out. Riddles in Stone was interesting to me because for a people who call themselves a fraternal order and do things in secret, to communicate with each other in riddles makes sense, right? And as I'm reading about Yahuah confounding their speech so they would not be able to do whatever this thing was that they were trying to do that he found offensive. He confounded their language so they could not communicate in the same language anymore. But they had a language. They had a language that they were used to communicating in that was nonverbal. It was math, it was science, it was stonemasonry. And so to understand that things have been and are being hidden in Masonic architecture, and to understand that it ties into their reverence for whatever Nimrod was doing, is very important to understand. Whatever Nimrod was doing here, Masons revere. That's why they call themselves Masons. And the communication among them is based on this idea of he confused the language. We couldn't communicate verbally. We need to be able to communicate in code. And that's what's going on, right? This is the origins of that, right here in Genesis 11. Okay, let's go back to Jubilees. Let's see some more of what they were doing from Jubilees. Jubilees 10, 18, and 19. We read for y'all a scripture in Isaiah that says they have made a covenant with death. Remember we read that scripture and we were talking about the significance of a fraternal organization that would use skulls and bones as like their logo. I don't believe in coincidence. You know what I'm saying? The same thing that was going on then is going on now. You don't pass this type of stuff over this many generations without it being something spiritual involved. You understand what I'm saying? For them to be in the position that they are in the earth, if we agree it's a position of power, there's got to be something back in it, right? Jubilees 10, 18, 19, whenever you're ready.
And in the 3 and 13th Jubilee, in the first year, in the second week, Peleg took to himself a wife, whose name was Lumna, the daughter of Shinar. And she bare him a son in the 4th year of this week. And he called his name Ruth. For he said, behold, the children of men have become evil through the wicked purposes of building for themselves a city and a tower in the land of Shinar.
Beautiful.
And they departed from the land of Arad eastward to Shinar. For in his day they built the city and the tower, saying, go to, let us ascend thereby into the heaven.
Pause. Pause. They said, let us ascend into heaven. There's a scripture that sounds like that. Somewhere that talks about somebody that said he wanted to place his throne in heaven. Y'all remember that? Somebody post that, if y'all know it. Let us ascend into heaven. Can y'all beat me to it?
Go ahead, come to Natasha. She fast with it.
Isaiah 14:14. Can you get that to read it for me? Isaiah chapter 14:14.
Okay.
What does that say? I'm pulling it up at the same time you do.
Okay. Let me go up above the heights of the clouds. Let me be like the Most High.
Back it up so we can see who's talking.
Okay. 12.
12. Starting 12.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, have you fallen from the heavens, O Hallel, son of the morning? You have been cut down to the ground, you who laid low the nations. For you have said in your heart, let me go up to the heavens. Let me raise my throne above the stars of power. And let me sit on the mount of appointment on the sides of the north. Let me go up above the heights of the clouds. Let me be like the Most High. Let
me place my throne in it. So if Nimrod had his people trying to do the exact same thing, would you agree that this is a similar spirit?
Sir.
So he's operating under the same spirit, right? So again, my question was, did this chief of those watcher angels that rebelled and his 10th of those angels that he said, save for me so I could work, so I could do my work, did he find somebody to do his work? That's the question. They literally were trying to do the exact same thing that in Isaiah it says this spirit said he was going to do. And so when we read about this, here's the thing, y'all. Like, y'all ever watch episodes of ancient History Channel, Ancient Aliens and stuff like that? And they show you artifacts in antiquity where they show you pictures of like flying machines and stuff like that. way before the Wright brothers ever invented an airplane. Wheels within wheels, descriptions of what we read Ezekiel described, this flying thing, stuff like that. Technology was around. Believe it, technology was around. We read about this tower that Nimrod was building, and the only thing we get in Genesis is that it was a tower that reached up into the heavens. But this says they were trying to ascend into the heavens. It sounds to me, and this is my opinion, let me be clear, this is my opinion. It sounds to me like Nimrod was constructing something that was going to allow humans and Malachim access to go back and forth. So like a portal for interdimensional travel. Does that make sense? Does that sound like a reach? Sound like I'm reaching there? That's what was going on here. Those angels that rebel and those humans that think that they can travel, because scripture said they ain't supposed to go there, right? This is some kind of portal, Stargate, pyramids, all that, whatnot, right? Okay, that's what it sounds like. Maybe I'm tripping. Dang, sis. It was a movie before it was a TV show. I don't know if y'all saw that. The movie was a lot better. I mean, to me, Jasher 7:44. Picking up Jasher 7 and 44. Gonna go 44 through 51. 44 through 51. Whenever you're ready.
And Nimrod dwelt in Shinar, and he reigned securely. And he fought his enemies, and he subdued them. And he prospered in all his battles. His kingdom became very great. And all the nations and tongues heard of his fame. And they gathered themselves to him, and they bowed down to the earth, and they brought him offerings. He became their master and king.
So now they bow down to him. Everybody in the earth is bowing down to Nimrod, worshiping Nimrod. He's become now not only their king, but their Lord, their master. So the term Lord means master. There's another tie with that term that ties into a Phoenician deity that goes by the name Baal, but the more common translation is master. Both apply depending on the context. Go ahead.
And they all dwelt with him in the city at Shinar. And Nimrod reigned in the earth over all the sons of Noah, and they were all under his power and counsel.
Key point. I just want y'all to, I want to emphasize Nimrod is now reigning over all, he's crushed out all the other families. Any skirmishes, any question they had about who was running this, everybody understand Nimrod running this. All of Noah's sons. Go ahead. 46.
And all the earth was one tongue and words of union. But Nimrod did not go in the way of the master, of Yahuah. And he was more wicked than all the men that were before him, from the days of the flood until those days. And he made gods of wood and stone. He bowed down to them. He rebelled against the master and taught all his subjects and the people of the earth his wicked ways. And Mardon, his son, was more wicked than his father. For everyone that heard of the acts of Mardon, the son of Nimrod, would say concerning him, from the wicked go forth the wicked. Therefore, it became a proverb in all the earth, saying, from the wicked go forth the wickedness. And it was current in the words of men from time to time.
Okay.
From that time to this.
Couple things I want to point out as well. So whatever Nimrod was doing, Yahuah saw that it was offensive, scattered all of them that were there to the four corners of the earth, confounded their language so they couldn't continue to communicate and build whatever it was they were trying to build. He called that place Babel because it was at that place that he confounded or confused their languages. The other term for languages you might say in certain translation, tongue. They were all of one tongue. That just mean languages. Where we are today, in how we got technology set up at this point. We're communicating with you guys through Zoom, wherever you at, right? We sitting here with our sketchy internet connection. Y'all sitting there where y'all at, and we can communicate. We could, if we chose to, for all intents and purposes, communicate with somebody on any continent around the world through this same connection, right? Okay. If we spoke different languages, you could use Google Translate, and therefore we could cross that language barrier, and you could understand what I'm saying. And if you chose to speak back, I can understand what you're saying, right? There's another language learning program that's very popular. You hear it promoted on the news all the time, Sirius XM and all that, that says we do this different. We use conversational terms, certain speech patterns to help you pick up a language like this. You decide you're going out of town, you're going to France, you're going to Spain, you want to learn language, use this program. We'll teach you that language real quick. Very popular. Y'all know the name of it? Babel. It's called Babel. You think that's coincidence? Or you think that's somebody playing some kind of sick, twisted joke? There's a rapper that's got this line that said, we was caught up in the web way before the internet. The internet, this web of things can be used to learn useful things, but it can be used for the purposes of that spirit as well, right? If you see what was happening here and what the Most High was trying to stop, you should also be able to kind of look around you in the world and see how there are still this day, and I'm gonna keep driving that point home, forces out there that are trying to claw back and reclaim what was lost before the deluge. Remember I told you about that term, the antediluvian period means pre-flood. What was going on pre-flood, there are some people who want that back. That's the Atlantis that they're looking for. That's the city under the sea that they're looking for. They want to uncover what was flooded and what was lost beneath the sea. That's the life they want. When you look at the back of your dollar, you lost the connection. All right. Okay, I think we're back. I completely lost my train of thought.
Your sister asked you about the destruction, about she said it was destroyed, or was destroyed with people's category.
The Tower of Babel, yeah, it was mostly destroyed. I think from what we read, it was a portion of it that still remained, but the better part of it, the better part of it was destroyed. Oh, that cup, regular cup. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. I can hear.
She said somebody was telling her that when the twin towers fell, there wasn't that black people that had as many casualties as other races.
That's possible. I can see that. I mean, how many brews worked in the Twin Towers? By comparison, yeah, that's possible. Okay, so yeah, I think that's what we were talking about. Yeah, so you know, in Earth, you'll see these people trying to reclaim what was lost in the pre-flood era. I think that's the point I was making, right? As we cut off. Okay, Tifa, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish what you're saying. We're gonna pick it back up. All right. So Nimrod is at his pinnacle. He being worshipped at this point. He is a king. He is a mighty one in earth. Let's pick up with verse 49. Joshua 7.
Okay. And Terah, the son of Nahor, prince of Nimrod's host, was in those days very great in the sight of the king and his subjects.
Okay.
And the king and princes loved him, and they elevated him very high. And Terah took a wife, and her name was Amithilo, the daughter of Cornigor. And the wife of Terah conceived and bare him a son in those days. Terah was 70 years old when he got him. And Terah called the name of his son that he was born to him Abram, because the king had raised him in those days and dignified him above all the princes that were with him.
Okay, good deal. So Terah was very high in the sight of Nimrod. Interesting. And that's Abraham's father. Let's go to Jasher chapter 8. The book of Jasher chapter 8. I'm going to read 1 through 4. Jasher 8. 1 through 4. Okay. No, I'll switch back.
And it was in the night that Abram was born. And all the servants of Terah and all the wise men of Nimrod and his conjurers came and ate and drank in the house of Terah. And they rejoiced with him on that night.
Let's let that sink in for a second. In the night Abraham was born, before his name was called Abram, it was Abram. Abraham was Abram. All the servants of Terah, all the wise men of Nimrod, conjurers. Terah was cool with all of them. Conjurers came and ate and drank. How cool were they? At the house of Terah to celebrate his son's birth. The night that Abram was born, they went to go kick it and toast it up. Nimrod and his servants and conjurers. He was very high on the pecking order, right? Okay. Go ahead, too.
And when all the wise men and conjurers went out from the house of Terah, they lifted up their eyes toward the heaven that night and looked at the stars. And they saw, and behold, one very large star came from the east and ran in the heavens. And he swallowed up 4 stars from the 4 sides of the heaven. And all the wise men of the king and his conjurers were astonished at the sight. And the sages understood this matter, and they knew its importance. And they said to each other, this only betokens the child that has been born to Terah this night. He will grow up and be fruitful and multiply and possess all the earth, he and his children forever. And he and his seed will slay great kings and inherit the lands.
Now, do y'all remember when we were talking about Arpachshad and the writings that he found after Noah and his father and them got off the ark? The writings that he found that was etched in the stone from the teachings of the fallen angels. Do y'all remember after he translated those writings, what those writings were teaching them how to do? What? How to read the stars, astrology, all that. So they went out there, they celebrating Abram's birth, and on the same night they celebrate Abram's birth, they go outside to toast or whatever, and they see something that they know is showing them prophetically what's happening and who this child is, right? So they said that they understood this means that this child that was born to Terah that night is going to grow up, he's going to be fruitful, he's going to multiply and possess all the earth, he and his children forever. And he and his seed will slay great kings who and inherit their lands. Whose lands they going to inherit?
The whole earth.
The whole earth. But what about that land Canaan stole? That land Canaan stole, and now Nimrod, who was running everything, also is over that land as well. So, like, again, I'm like, think about the disposition of somebody who was taking something, and now they saying it's theirs, and now you are a threat to what they have taken. And so he's saying this child is going to raise up and is a threat to what we have taken by right of arms. Kill it.
Yeah.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's go to 9. chapter 8, verse 9. He got to go. He's a threat. Jasher 8, we're going to read 9 through 13. Wonder why they hate you? This is why they hate you. Same spirit. If you of the seed that Abraham is of, and of those that come along in that lineage, those that have a problem with you have a problem with you for the same reason. You're threatening what they have acquired. The position that they have taken in the earth and what they have taken and what they control. If you wake up to who you are a threat to them directly. Wonder why they hate you. That's why they hate you. Jasher 8, 9 through 13, whenever you're ready.
We heard that a son was born to Terah, the son of Nahor, the prince of thy hosts. And we yesternight came to his house, and we ate and drank and rejoiced with him that night. And when thy servant went out from the house of Terah to go to our respective homes to abide there for the night, we lifted up our eyes to the heaven, and we saw a great star coming from the east. And the same star ran with great speed and swallowed up 4 great stars from the 4 sides of the earth, of the heavens.
From the 4 corners? Is that kind of how that sounds? From the 4 corners of the earth. Go ahead.
And thy servants were astonished at the sight which we saw. And we were greatly terrified. And we made our judgment upon the sight. And we knew by our wisdom the proper interpretation thereof. That this thing applies to the child that is born to Terah, who will grow up and multiply greatly and become powerful and kill all the kings of the earth and inherit all their lands, he and his seed forever. And now, our mighty king, behold, we have truly acquainted thee with what we have seen concerning this child. If it seemeth good to the king to give his father value for this child, we will slay him before he shall grow up and increase in the land. And his evil increase against us. And we and our children perish through this evil.
So if it seemed good to you, now that we've told you what's going on and how he's a threat to everything that you represent, we would suggest in our counsel this, that you give his father money, take the child, and murder the child, or slay the child, or sacrifice the child, however you want to look at it, before he grows up and increases. Then it says that if he does that, that this will be perceived by them as evil, right? So think about that. These are obviously wicked people from where we sit, from what we believe. These are wicked people. And they see righteousness as evil, even as adversaries. Like righteous people, they consider to be adversaries. Think about that. When we say Ha Shaitan or Satan, that's how important it is to understand that that's just a title. It's not a name, right? Because anybody that you're talking to, you can say that something you're doing is wicked, or you're a devil or the devil, based on what their position of belief is, right? These people are calling the birth of Abram wicked, evil to them, because of what side of the political spectrum they sit on, if you want to look at it like that, you know what I'm saying? But that's also why it's important to know names of who you worship and not just use titles. So that if you're talking to somebody about who you believe in and what you believe in, and yeah, I believe in God, okay, which one? You know what I'm saying? But no, the devil is a lie, that song. The devil is a lie, Rick Ross. Who's the devil to you? You know what I'm saying? Who you calling a lie? If you've raised to the heights of your power through lies, trickery, deceit, selling the idea that it's okay to sell dope, which we know is a trap for us, you know what I'm saying? And that's how you made your money. What work you doing? Who is your God? When you say you love the Lord, who are you talking about? You understand what I'm saying? It's important to know names. They got gods too. They believe in a God or some gods, and they have adversaries. They adversary ain't the same as your adversary. Let's go on to 14 through 16. Chapter 8. Kind of like what we talked about with the young coach last night about that name, Jesus. If you saying Jesus and you believe that he has the same scriptural attributes as who I'm calling Messiah or Yahushua, then I don't have a problem with it. But if you're saying Jesus and what Jesus teaches is different than what the biblical Messiah teaches, then we're not talking about the same person. We're say I'm blunt, I'm brash, I'm direct. That's just the facts. It would not be loving of me to allow that conversation to happen and not tell you directly at some point, this is what you need to know about that. And if you choose to accept that or reject that, it's now up to you. Your blood is not on my hands. I've told you the truth. That's our job as a kingdom of priests. See how that all tie in? That's our job as a nation of priests, to uplift the name of Mashiach and to uplift the name of Yahuah. Right? Okay, 14 through 16. Can y'all see those scriptures here? Make me out to be a tyrant.
I know. The Janelle has a question.
Okay.
She wants to know, is there any parallels between Abraham's birth and the Messiah's birth?
I would say, yeah. The star situation is one of the parallels. That those who are wise in their understanding understood that the star had something to do with his birth. You had something? What about Moses' birth? Yeah. Both of them were deliverers for their people. Both of them were as they were born into the earth, coming to take up the mantle. Coming to take up the mantle of standing in that priesthood position, right? Moses was as well. Moses was even said to be a god to his people, and Aaron, his prophet, right? Messiah Yahushua was born also to stand in that position. I apologize, fam. But yeah, Messiah also came to fulfill that priest position, but he came to fill it completely, right? So all of those that came before him came in the way that is spoken of in Hebrews, where it says they could not continue because of death. They could not continue in the priest position. So we talked about that when we did the study on Melchizedek. In Hebrews 4, Hebrews 9, 10, and 11, it talks about how Messiah fulfilled the sacrifices, how when he came and he gave his life, he fulfilled those sacrifices then and forevermore, in other words, perpetually. And that him being a high priest offered himself once and for all, forever. And that with him now taking up the mantle of being the high priest, there's no longer a need for somebody to offer yearly as those priests did, because in their position, they offered every time they sinned. Him having come and not having sinned was able to do it once and didn't have to keep doing it over and over. So that now, if you believe in him and what he did, your sacrifices are taken care of. You know what I'm saying? So yes, they came in the earthly version of that priesthood. Each one of them that y'all brought up, they came in the earthly version of a priesthood even before Levi. Levi came, and that's kind of the nature of this whole study. Levi came and took up the mantle as a priest tribe among a nation of priests. And then Messiah came to return the priesthood back to what it was in the first place, which was according to the order of Melchizedek. It wasn't just about Levi. It was about the priest who was in the garden. That was the righteous priesthood. We'll get there. We'll bring it home eventually. Okay, 14 through 16.
And the king heard their words, and they seemed good in his sight. And he sent and called for Terah.
Wickedness was counted as good, and good was counted as wickedness.
Sound familiar?
Sound like book. Okay, I apologize.
And Terah came before the king. And the king said to Terah, I have been told that a son was yesternight born to thee, and after this manner was observed in the heavens at his birth. And now therefore give me the child, that we may slay him before his evil springs up against us. And we give thee for his value thy house full of silver and gold.
Okay. He coming to this man asking for his child.
Sound like a murder for gain to me.
You know how we get down.
Yeah.
Your child is a threat to the kingdom. Give me the child. We're going to go ahead and sacrifice the child. You know how we worship, right? We're going to sacrifice the child. I'm going to fill your house with gold and silver. You're going to be good. Yeah. But we need to go ahead and take care of this child, for this child coming between what we got going on. You, my right-hand man. My man's in there. So in order for us to continue getting it the way we getting it, we need that child. That's what he told him. This sounds like a sacrifice to me. I don't know no other way to slice that. It sounds like a sacrifice. Yeah. And then the question too is like, what spirit is leading them to the understanding that they need to intercept this child's growth into manhood in order to kill him before he grows, like Bob Marley said. Kill it before he grows. The spirit of Balaam, the spirit of the adversary, the spirit that is said in the garden, her seed is going to crush your heel. The spirit that had that priesthood or Cain slay his brother in order for gain, right? So for them to keep getting it, they need to kill that child. This child is going to throw a monkey wrench in everything that you got going on, that you've been blessed with by the gods we worship. The God's been blessing us. Don't stop that. Go to child. 17 through 21.
And then you know he was married to me. He was married to the Lord 21 too.
So again, we saying who are they getting the information from to tell them this child is a threat? We read about the counselors. I would presume his wife is probably one of his counselors as well. Right. Right. Whenever you're at 17 through 21.
And Terah answered the king and said to him, my master king, I have heard thy words.
Yes, my liege.
And thy servant shall do all that the king has desired. But my master and king, I will tell thee what happened to me yesternight, that I might see what advice the king will give his servant. And then I will answer the king upon what he has just spoken. And the king said, speak. And Terah said to the king, Ion, son of Mored, came to me yesterday, saying, give unto me the great and beautiful horse that the king gave thee, and I will give thee silver and gold, and straw and provender for its value. And I said to him, wait till I see the king concerning thy words, and behold, whatever the king saith, that I will do. And now, my master king, behold, I have made this thing known to thee, and the advice which my king will give unto his servant, that I will follow. Okay,
so y'all think Terah got to his position because he was dumb? I don't think so either. He is a seed of Shem. He is a seed of Shem. He do know right from wrong. He just ain't walking it out. He's not dumb. Here he is putting his life on the line. We know who Nimrod is. We know what Nimrod is about. He's putting his life on the line for his son. He's testing Nimrod to see if Nimrod really care about him or if it's just about Nimrod. Like, I've been rocking with you, but my son? Like, my son? Really? And so he couldn't just come right out and be like, dude, you stupid. I ain't no way in the hell. Nimrod probably would have killed him on the spot. So in this parable that he gives him, he putting it back in Nimrod's hand, like, okay, let me ask, I got you, whatever you want, but let me ask you this, because I said I was going to talk to you. Next time I seen you, I was going to ask you, remember the horse you gave me? Nimrod is a ruler in the position of godship. So Nimrod giving Terah that horse, in Nimrod's mind, is like Terah's ruler, master, God, giving him something. And you done told me that somebody told you they was going to give you gold for something I gave you. If I gave it to you, it was better than gold. What you need gold for? Right, and I'm jumping ahead too. I apologize. Let's go on. 22 through 28. No, 29. 22. Joshua. 8. 22 through 29. 29. Okay. Whenever you're ready.
And the king heard the words of Terah, and his anger was kindled, and he considered him in the light of a fool.
You sound like a fool. That's what he told
me. The king answered Terah and said to him, art thou silly, ignorant, or deficient in understanding?
Deficient in you know what? I'll be telling my wife, I say, it's so many ways that you can get your point across without cussing, and you could really make somebody feel the way you know what I'm saying? You ain't got to. My man said, are you deficient of understanding? You silly? My grandmother did to us all the time. Like, she would hurt your feelings. She never cussed, but she would have you in tears. You are deficient of understanding. Okay.
To give thy beautiful horse for silver and gold, or even for straw and provender. Art thou so short of silver and gold?
You that broke?
That thou should do this thing? Because thou cannot obtain straw and provender to feed thy horses? And what is silver and gold to thee? Or straw and provender? Wait.
That thou should give away that fine horse which I gave thee.
Like which there is none to be had on the whole earth.
So Nimrod's saying, I gave you something, but there is nothing like this in the whole earth. It's irreplaceable. I don't know about what wins. I don't know. But either way, it was a purebred whatever. Nimrod said, you can't replace this gold and silver, provender, whatever. It's nothing worth that. There are no two alike. And I think that's kind of what Terah was getting at with his son, right? It's like, right. Are you listening to yourself?
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, you my son for silver and gold. Right. Like you said, I ain't no screw. And the king left off speaking. And Terah answered the king, saying,
you said it.
Like unto this has thy king spoken to his servant.
Right.
I beseech thee, my master and king, what is this which thou didst say unto me, saying, give thy son that we may slay him, and I will give thee silver and gold for his value.
Think about what you just said to me. Just like what you just said. Think about what you just said to me. Go ahead.
What should I do with silver and gold after the death of my son?
Right.
Who shall inherit me?
That's my inheritance. My son is my inheritance. What are you saying? Go ahead.
Surely then at my death, the silver and gold will return to my king.
Without a son to give it to. Right? So what is this, like a temporary banking plan? You gonna give me some money, hold for you, and then when I die and you done kill my son, and you get the money right back? Because who's gonna stop you from taking it? Who's gonna stop you? Go ahead.
And when the king heard the words of Terah and the parable which he brought concerning the king, he grieved him greatly, and he was vexed at this thing. And his anger burned within him.
So that did nothing but piss him off even more.
And Terah saw that the anger of the king was kindled against him. And he answered the king, saying, all that I have is in the king's power. Whatever the king desired to do to his servant, that let him do. Yea, even my son, he is in the king's power, without value in exchange, he and his two brothers that are older than he. And the king said to Terah, no, but I will purchase thy younger son for a price.
So he says, okay, I see you getting upset, big fella. Whatever you say, whatever I have is yours. My son, the one you asked for, and guess what? The other ones too. Don't kill my whole family, big fella. Please. Jasher 8, starting at 30.
Abraham was late dead. I already chosen Abraham to inherit. Abraham was his favorite, so Terah was able to see that Abraham was going to be.
Terah saw that Abraham was special, and even more, those conjurers saw that Abraham. So look at what Nimrod said. His response when Abraham said, not just him, but the other two as well. Whatever. You want to wipe my lineage out, take them both. Take them all three of them. Nimrod said, no, I don't want them. That's the one. That's the one that I have an issue with. That's the one that's a threat to my position. He's the one who's next in that lineage. As we're talking about this order of Melchizedek. We're talking about the order of Melchizedek. He's the next in that lineage. It's being passed down generationally from one high priest to the next high priest. And so Nimrod's counselors are telling him he's the one. I don't care about the other one. It's not the whole family. They're all doing all kind of stuff, but that one there is something special or something different. He's the one that's going to carry the torch. He's the one that's going to instruct his children in righteousness. He's the one that's going to instruct anybody who wants to know in the righteousness of Yah. And that's why he's a threat. Going to do 30 through 36. Yeah, Nimrod didn't care about the other two. And this gets a little twisted because Abram had to be preserved at all costs. Like, if we're talking about spirits, and the spirit using a human vessel to stop a plan before it comes to fruition, he's like, look, I need you as my priest, this wicked spirit, as my priest, to kill that individual because he's a threat to my spiritual kingdom. This plan that traverses generations, decades, hundreds of years, thousands of years, this plan that I've been working on, he's a threat to that. If you kill him now, we in the clear. That's what's going on here. Whenever you're ready.
And Terah answered the king, saying, I beseech thee, my master and king, to let thy servant speak a word before thee, and let the king hear the word of his servant. And Terah said, let my king give me 3 days' time till I consider this matter within myself, and consult with my family concerning the words of my king. And he pressed the king greatly to agree to this. And the king hearkened to Terah, and he did so and gave him 3 days' time.
Now that was even very bold. You know what I'm saying? For him to even push him that much to give him those 3 days, but it's like, what do we have to lose? At this point, you either gonna kill me and my whole household, or you might give me 3 days, at which time I might be able to figure something out. He going into one out of time.
Out of time, is that Washington?
Yeah. Ooh, in a tight spot. Go ahead.
And Terah went out from the king's presence. He came home to his family and spoke to them all the words of the king. And the people were greatly afraid. And it was in the 3rd day that the king sent to Terah, saying, send me thy son for a price, as I spoke to thee. And shouldst thou not do this, I will send and slay all thou hast in thy house, so that thou shalt not even have a dog remain.
Now look, they was homeboys, wasn't they? And when it came down to his kingdom being threatened, he said, look, 3 days is up. He was like the dope man coming saying, look, I gave you that on consignment. I don't care if you made the money. I don't care if you made it the way you wanted to or not. I don't care about you lost it. None of that. Rain, sleet, hail, snow. It's payout time. Right. And he say, look, I will slaughter everything in your house if you don't give me that boy. So however you want it, make your decision. Go ahead.
And Terah hastened, as the thing was urgent from the king. He took a child from one of his servants.
That's how serious he was.
Which his handmaid had born to him that day. And Terah brought the child to the king and received value for him.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of his children. This is my first time seeing that.
It didn't say it was his child. It's possible, but it didn't say it was his child.
Which a handmaid had born to him that day.
I just took that to mean his household. She's a servant. But I'm not saying it don't mean that, but I didn't take it that way. But it could mean that. It's possible.
And Yahuah was with Terah in this matter, that Nimrod might not cause Abram's death. And the king took the child from Terah, and with all his might dashed his head to the ground. For he thought that it was Abram. Mm-hmm. And this was concealed from him from that day. Mm-hmm. And it was forgotten by the king, as it was the will of providence not to suffer Abram's death.
So just like that, when he got who he thought was Abraham, he didn't wait. He didn't take him to the sorcerers and the conjurers. He killed him right there in front of Terah's face, even thinking it was his son, and then walked off like, we good now. Keep on living. You still my boy. And they was good. So what did Abraham do? After wiping all his sweat, so he was sweating bullets.
And Terah took Abram his son secretly, together with his mother and nurse, and he concealed them in a cave. He brought them their provisions monthly. And the master was with Abram in the cave, and he grew up. And Abram was in the cave 10 years. And the king and his princes, soothsayers and sages, thought that the king had killed Abram.
Beautiful. Okay. So, huh? Yeah. So, they're a little short-sighted, huh? Crystal ball was a little foggy.
Right.
Yeah. So, so now you got the birth of Abraham, who was the nemesis to Nimrod. Clearly, that's Nimrod's nemesis. It wasn't Terah. It wasn't Nahor. It was Abram. It wasn't Shem. It wasn't Noah. They was already up there in age. They was to themselves worshiping Yah. They posed him no threat. But this youth who was being birthed into the ways of righteousness was going to be more virile than Nimrod, younger than you, Nimrod, and have all of the righteous teachings to pose a threat to Nimrod. Okay. This said that Abram knew the master from 3 years old. What does it mean to know Yah, really?
To be intimate, Abiyah was in Abram. Abram knew Abiyah's spirit. Like, my husband knew me. We have 8 children to prove it.
So to know is a level of intimacy.
Yeah.
Yes, I would agree. So Abram was intimately familiar with the master. I would take it to mean that Yahuah at some point communicated with him as well and began regularly communicating with him. Different from Terah and Nahor. Terah and Nahor knew of Yah. They were Shem's children, right? So they knew of Yah, but they wasn't doing Yah's will. Haran knew of Yah too, didn't he? Okay. Where we at? You finished 6?
Yep.
You finished 6. Okay. 7 through 10.
No, wait.
You didn't finish 6?
Oh, Genesis 6.
Genesis 6? No.
What's 6? Yeah, Joshua chapter 8 or Deuteronomy chapter 10.
Yeah, did you finish verse 6 is what I'm asking. Joshua chapter 9. Oh, I apologize. I skipped. Joshua 9 and 1.
Joshua 9 and 1.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Joshua. I was reading my note from Joshua 9 and 1. When I asked, what does it mean to know Yah? Let's go 1 through 6.
And Haran the son of Terah, Abram's oldest brother, took a wife in those days. Haran was 39 years old when he took her. And the wife of Haran conceived and bare a son, and he called his name Lot.
Abraham's oldest brother, Haran's son name was
Lot.
That's the Lot we read about in Scripture. That's the one that Abraham took in and treated like a son. Okay, go ahead.
And she conceived again and bare a daughter, and she called her name Milcah. And she conceived again and bare a daughter, and she called her name Sarah.
Sarah, Haran's daughter, Lot's sister, is who Abraham winds up marrying. Is that what you said the other day? Perfect. Beautiful. That is Abraham's future wife. Abraham's only 10 right now, but that's his future wife. Go ahead.
Haran was 42 years old when he begot Sarah.
Okay.
Which was in the 10th year of the life of Abraham.
So she was 10 years younger than Abram. Go.
And in those days, Abram and his mother and nurse went out from the cave, as the king had and his subjects had forgotten the affair of Abram.
So Abram was in the cave 10 years. It took 10 years before his father felt it was safe enough for them to come on out. They went on about their business, doing big things in the earth. Go ahead.
And when Abram came out from the cave, he went to Noah and his son Shem. And he remained with them to learn the instructions of Yahuah and his ways.
Picking up on Mendeley's comment. So at this point now, he's gone from the time when they put him in the cave, 10 years, to now from 10 years of age up to a certain point where he's strictly being tutored by Noah and Shem. So he is at the feet of Noah and Shem, learning from the masters of those who know Yah. Who better to learn from? Noah and Shem. Before Noah died, he had an opportunity to learn at the feet of Noah. And then by the time Noah died, Shem. Don't get no better than that. Yeah. Why was Abraham so strong? That's why. That's why. Go ahead.
And he remained with them to learn the instructions of the master and his ways. And no man knew what Abram was. And Abram served Noah and Shem, his son, for a long time.
Long time.
And Abram was in Noah's house 39 years. And Abram knew Yahuah from 3 years old.
So that's where my question came in about what it really means to know Yahuah. But now let's focus on, since we asked that already, let's focus on the years that he studied. Right? I'm talking to y'all and I'm talking to y'all as well. For somebody to be considered to be studied in this, what we studying, Abraham was thorough. Abraham is what we call a thoroughbred, right? 39 years under the tutelage of Noah and Shem, before he was thought ready to go out on his own and be the man. He was 49 years old, finna be 50. Before he left off studying under Noah and Shem. That's how many years he studied.
Scriptures say he was 49 when he left his father's house. His grandfather.
He was proficient in this walk.
And went back home like the students had to college.
Yes. It's finna be 50 years old. Yeah. So don't get discouraged. Don't get discouraged as we studying this, and we like it's always you always learning. Rick was talking to y'all about how it can feel sometimes to feel like the people you talking to know so much more. And we was telling y'all we remember those days. We remember those days we was talking to people and it was like, how do you know all? It's like I was talking to people that was referencing all these books that we talking about, along with books that I still haven't read yet, and even now I still know brothers that talk that stuff, and I'm like, bro, slow down. I'm not there. You know what I'm saying? Slow down. Come to Natasha, what you got? It's a lifelong expedition, fam. Let me turn my volume up. Are you talking? Are you at the mic? You want to wait till after we done? We almost done. Gabora posted in the group. It's like all the high priests of the priesthood were hunted and tried to be killed at. Yep. At birth. Yeah. All of them were hunted. Moses, Abraham, Messiah. Then, yeah, you're right. And then go to Jezebel, Ahab's wife. Remember, she was on a mission to kill all the prophets. Right? Remember King Shaul had a man murder all the priests. He was an Edomite. His name was Doeg. Had him kill as many priests he could find. 2 escaped and ran off and hid out with Dawid until Dawid took over. Koti Latasha, if you can come to the mic, you can take it. If not, we'll continue and then you can try again when we finish. We're almost there. Look like her hand went down. Did she leave her? She might have left. We're gonna go ahead. You can come up. She can come up. Let me know if she come back in. I'm gonna keep going. Okay. From the time he was 3 years old and he went in the ways of the master until the day of his death, as Noah and his son Shem had taught him, and all the sons of the earth in those days greatly transgressed against the master, and they rebelled against him. I thought I was reading one line. You want to pick it up there? I'll go to 7 and then you pick it up. And they served gods, and they forgot the master who had created them in the earth, and the inhabitants of the earth made unto themselves at that time every man his god, gods of wood and stone, which could neither speak nor hear nor deliver. And the sons of men served them, and they became their gods. Picking up a 7.
And the king and all his servants and Terah with all his household were then the first of those who served gods of wood and stone.
So this is where that originated, family. Nimrod made this a thing, to have idols carved out of wood or etched out of stone. As the wisdom of Solomon says, the work of the artificers, the artists, so that you could worship your king in your house, even though he was far away. Your king's son, who was thought to be the next in line of the gods that you worship. You could have an image of your king's son on your mantle so that you could worship him there, even though he was far away. Huh? Caesar Borgia on your wall, around your neck. This is where all that originated. Go ahead.
And
8.
And Terah had 12 gods of large size made of wood and stone. After the 12 months of the year, and he served each one monthly. And every month Terah would bring his meat offering and drink offering to his gods. Thus did Terah all the days. And all the generations were wicked in the sight of Yahuah. And they thus made every man his god. But they forsook Yahuah, who had created them. And there was not a man found in those days in the whole earth who knew Yahuah, except Noah and his household.
I'm sorry, go ahead. And his household, right? Is that the end of that verse? I'm sorry, go ahead.
And all those who were under his counsel knew Yahuah in those days.
Hallelujah. Let's go back to 8 real quick. You said you got a question. Yeah.
That's what Terah was doing. How did Abraham end up with Noah and Shem?
Abraham came out from hiding and went with Noah and Shem because even his father understood that that was the best place for him to be.
Was he saying, did he send him there the same way that Isaac sent Jacob there?
I can't remember, but I'm sure we're going to read about it probably next week. I can't remember. Okay, let's go back to verse 8. It says, and Terah had how many gods? 12 gods. Large size, made of wood and stone, after the 12 months of the zodiac. Y'all catch that? Zodiac. Where'd that come from?
That's where that 12 children of light stuff come from.
Why don't we deal with the zodiac? The month that you speak, when you list the months of the year, are named after the gods of the nations, right? Remember we talked about during the New Year's study that we did, Janus, the janitor, the gatekeeper, the one that guards the gate, that looks forward and backward. That's a god, that's a deity. The Hebrew months are numbered. There's one Hebrew month that has a name. The name of that Hebrew month is Abib. You know what that means? What does that mean?
Bud.
Green ear.
Green ear. It signifies that you are in the springtime, because the new year and the first month of the new year happens during spring, right? So the name of that month signifies what season you're in, and it helps you to locate where that month should be on your calendar. Does that make sense? The rest of the months, according to the Hebrew calendar, go like this: 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that you don't have confusion and accidentally wind up calling on these deities. It's actually considered a sin to call on those deities, right? I know we use them for communication purposes in the society that we live in, to say, hey, I need the 10th of August off. I need the 14th and the 15th of August off. With people who don't understand that, I understand that. But there's something to that. I'm not gonna get into the whole calendar study right now, but if you haven't seen it, look up the playlist we have on the calendar study. We go into all of that, okay? But anyway, that's the origin of it.
Takesha has a question.
Okay, go for it.
She said, I have noticed people started to wear stones for things like protection and such. Is this another similarity?
Yes, stones do have power, right? If stones didn't have power, Moses wouldn't have been told or shown a pattern to create the breastplate for the priests. When they put the breastplate on and they had the 12 stones, stones do have power, right? The power that the stones have is similar to when you was in school and you learned about conductors of electricity, right? So let's think about this like a science project. What the priest had on was a plate of gold. Within that plate of gold, there would have acted almost like a motherboard to a certain extent. You had each one of these stones that had different frequencies and makeups to allow them to conduct different frequencies of electricity or whatever. So that when the priests were going to Yahuah to seek an answer, the stones would light up. Did y'all know that? We talked about that. The stones would light up to communicate an answer, right? So they had an electrical circuit system that they wore, and that didn't even include the 2 stones on their shoulder that gave them like a yes or no. Am I remember that correct? They gave them a yes or no answer. But among those 12 stones in their breastplate, they got other answers, right? So yes, there is a righteous version of that. And each one of those stones represents a tribe. So I'm sure the chiefs or the heads of each one of those tribes probably wore those stones. Like if we are the tribe of Judah, Judah will probably walk around with an emerald. That's the stone that represents Judah. Now, is there a wicked version of that as well? Absolutely. I was just watching, hold your question, remember it. I'm gonna let you ask. I was watching an episode of Hell's Kitchen. I know, don't stone me. Yes, I was watching an episode of Hell's Kitchen, and this gay Jewish lady, I'm not catching those aspersions, I'm just saying what it was, came back in the show, and they was doing a cook your signature dish challenge, and these were returning chefs. All-star episode. So he said everybody should score 4 or 5. 3 at the lowest. I don't expect nobody to score lower than 3. She scored a 1 for her team. She went back to the dorms of the chefs, and she's sitting there with her little stone dangling over her palm, and the brews, they don't know they bruise, but the brews looking at her like, what the hell going on here? And so the other Gentiles like, oh, she praying to her stone. She get to explain it to them, and they like, she like, oh yeah, I ask it questions. It only give me yes or no answers. But I ask it questions, and it give me answers. It centers me. It balances me. And there's a brew chef, another female, that got a 5 on her channel. Now, I'm not saying she a brew that knew she a brew. I'm saying she was a Hebrew. She looked at her, she was like, you didn't ask it about the salmon, did you? Because that's what she cooked that got her to 1. But anyway, I'm being humorous, but yeah, there's a wicked version of that, and that's what she was doing. She was probably practicing some form of Kabbalism or something to that degree, I'm assuming, where in which they take stones and they pray to them, and they say that these stones have a power, but they don't understand the power. Kind of like Simon Magnus. Simon Magnus in the so-called New Testament was with the apostles, witnessed the power of the set-apart spirit, and said, I need that, stop. He said, I need that. Can I buy that? Man, if I had that, think about the book of Eli. If I had that, I could run it. I got money. How much? Teach me how to do that. And they ran him off because he witnessed the power, but didn't understand the power and thought he could purchase the power. You can't just go out and purchase you some stones and think that you're going to righteously use these stones. The priest had the stones. There was a righteous purpose for those stones. Does that help? Yeah. Witchcraft. Yeah. And most of the times when you see it, that's more than likely what's going on. More than likely. I wouldn't say in every case. I don't want to put a blanket over all of those instances. What was your question?
I wasn't a question. I was just talking about this one lady. We did a job for her down Uri, and she had, like, when you first walk in the door and you look to the left of the door, there's a case with a bunch of Hebrew transcripts in it, and you see a bunch of like paleo, all the different Hebrew stuff, like all over the place is locked inside the case. But she just had this weird vibe.
Gentile.
Like, Gentile.
Okay.
And the further you go into the house, there's like stones laid out in different patterns in every room right at the door. Then like when you go, but the way it is, like you seen, there was a picture of a hexagram on her desk, and then like up the stairs in one of the rooms, just a huge mural of Buddha, you know. And so basically I wound up hearing that, like, basically they speak to the stones, and then the stones speak back to them and tell them in what order they need to lay the stones to make it secure.
Sounded like she was a Kabbalist.
Yeah. And so she said she practiced Hebrew, but it's all contradicting all the different things.
So Kabbalism is a form of what they call Jewish mysticism or Jewish witchcraft, if we're just speaking plainly.
Calling her the Hebrew witch.
Yeah, but I wouldn't give her that dignity of calling her Hebrew anything.
But she gave me a Torah, which was an Arab manuscript. She said it was supposed to bring me good luck and safety. And as soon as we got in the truck and started going down the road, when we got to the bridge, I tossed it out the window.
I don't blame you. I wouldn't want nothing she had off. Me and Rhea went into a restaurant one time, Indian restaurant. And we thought, man, we had been passing by it a few times, like, man, I want to try the Indian restaurant out. I like Indian food, you know, whatever. And we walked in the door, and as soon as you got through the double doors, right behind like the host station, there was this Kali. You know, the one with all the arms and all that going on. Shiva, Kali, Shiva, same deity, different name. We saw that, looked at each other, walked out the door. We didn't even have to say why. Both of us understood. We saw that and was like, Had it been in hiding somewhere, not on the open, we probably would have said an 8, just because, you know, we don't give any power to the gods, and we don't believe that the gods have any power over us. We secure in what we believe. But that was so prominent and out front, that was like, I'm not finna play with that.
I feel like we was going to dine with it or something like that.
Yeah. Nah, I'm not playing with it.
Let me feed you.
No, I'm not eating from your hands. So anyway, this said that there was not a man found in those days in the whole earth who knew the master, for they served each man his own God, except Noah and his household. Wasn't Terah of Noah's household? He was, wasn't he? Y'all remember the scripture? Go to 10, Matthew 10, 32 and 33. Matthew 10, 32 and 33. So I want to show y'all how deep this is. Matthew 10. I'm going to do it over here because I'm out of room over there. Read that whenever you're ready.
Is it 30 to 33?
32 and 33. Matthew 10, 32 and 33.
Everyone, therefore, who shall confess me before men, him I shall also confess before my Father who is in the heavens. But whosoever shall deny me before men, him I shall also deny before my Father who is in the heavens.
Got it. Good. So now, was Terah denying the master before me?
Yes, sir.
He was of Noah's house. He was literally of Noah's house. But he was not walking in the same way Noah was walking, right? So he wasn't counted as part of Noah's household. Read 35 and 36.
For I have come to bring division, a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's enemy are those of his own household.
That's how serious that is. A man's enemy. And when it says a man's enemy is not is of his own household, it's not saying you going to war with your kinfolk. It's not saying you stabbing them up, shooting them in their sleeping. That's not what it's saying. What it's saying is spiritually. When you understand this, the spirit is going to cause a division among those who believe this and hold this to be near and dear to their heart, and those who this is not in their heart and they don't want it. And you'll see it, and you will feel it, and you will experience it, and you will understand it as it happens. And you can pray for them, but that's about the best you can do. You can share with them, keep them in prayer. You never know. You might cause them to come around. If they witness you being solid in your walk for some time, and they finally realize it's not a fad, and they see the Messiah working things in your life, you might cause them to come around. It's possible. I've seen it happen. But you cannot let it deter you from doing what you're supposed to do. Abraham ain't going to let it deter him. Terah got there in front of Nimrod and was like, yeah, whatever you say. Like, I know that's what Noah and Shem and them taught me, but, man, we getting it over here. Give money. That's all it was about. 11 and 12. Koti Gabora. I can't see y'all, so you got to tell me because I got my screen on my scriptures. Okay, come on to the mic, Koti.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to speak on the situation about the crystals and how they are using them now.
Yep.
When I was still searching for the truth, I happened to be at work one day, and this woman came in. And she started asking me questions while I was, doing my rooming thing or whatever, because I was a nurse. And she started asking me questions because she saw a certain spirit on me. And so, nevertheless, in our conversation, she started telling me how she could help me to establish my gifts. Now, I grew up being called a witch and all of this other kind of stuff. So that was one of my hurdles that I had to get over because I felt, like it was a bad thing. So when this woman told me, she was talking about, no, there's good witches, and all of this, I see this on you and all of that kind of stuff. Well, after I did meet with her, and she gave me this whole book that they have in the coven that explains how these crystals work, how using sage to open up these portals. Now, because I was somewhat grounded in the word, I kind of was like, wait a minute, this sounds like it's about to take me somewhere else, and I'm not going to play with it, especially if I am able to open up these portals. You understand what I'm saying? Because this woman just walked in out the street. First time she was in my doctor's office, we had no prior communication, no anything. Like, she walked in there and she saw it on me and she immediately went into attack mode. And they were trying, to the point where they were trying to get me to buy certain sauce. She was really pushing, came up to my job again when she didn't hear from me. You know what I'm saying? And it was just like, when I first opened the book, like, I'm telling you, it was just, I can't explain it, but the spirit that walked out of the book, it just threw me for a whole thing, like shut me down for a whole nother year. Like, I didn't open up a holy text. I didn't want to know. No, I was afraid to touch, hear anything for a year.
Yeah, that's why it's good to understand these things so that you can defend yourself. A lot of people gonna try to push stuff on you as if it ain't no big deal, or even it's good for whatever reason. And you gotta have a foundation, fam. Yeah. Personally, somebody coming to me with that stuff at this point, with where I am in my understanding, the way my life is set up, we're not even finna have that much of an extended conversation. I'm exiting stage left. You can keep talking if you want to, but I'm going. Or I might respond, but I'm not saying get into an argument, but let me tell you how quick it is to stop somebody from talking nonsense to you. Say I'm an Israelite. And a lot of times that stops all the rest of that. Unless it's somebody that want to talk to you about that. And then maybe it's a fruitful conversation. Or if it's somebody that want to debate you on that, and then be studied and prepared to defend your position. Or be prepared to say, I don't want to argue about this. I don't want to cause you to blaspheme Yahuah, because you can't come back from that. So you the type of ignorant, and sometimes it's just what it is. You the type of ignorant that I'm gonna help you help yourself by just not even having this conversation with you. And maybe sometime in the future, you think about it and come back and research this on your own. In other words, you just dropping the seeds. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing. Let's wrap this up, y'all. I got 2 more scriptures, and then we could go straight into Q&A for whoever else has some. So we're back to Jasher 9, finishing up 10 and reading 11 and 12. Yeah, finishing up 10, unless you finished it already. You did, and all those who were under his counsel knew the master in those days. 11 and 12.
And Abram, the son of Terah, was waxing great in those days in the house of Noah, and no man knew it. And the master was with him. And the master gave Abram an understanding heart, and he knew all the works of all that generations were vain, and that all their gods were vain and were of no avail. Hallelujah.
So we're gonna wrap it up there. So basically, you got everybody in the earth still participating in this wickedness. It's clearly going back to what it was before the flood. And we just read here that only Noah's house, consisting of Noah, Shem, and Abram, were even worried about Yahuah. But it said while all that was going on outside of their house, it said Abram was waxing great. What does that mean? Abram was thriving. His understanding, his communication, his one-on-one relationship with the Father was being fine-tuned. And nobody understood that. Nobody knew what was going on. So by the time Abraham come out of here, we're going to see something. So that's what we're doing next week. We're looking at Abraham and him righteously seeking the master. So after he goes through his study with them, Now he's gonna come out, like Rib says, almost like coming home from higher level education. He's gonna righteously seek the master to understand him more fully. That's what we're gonna pick up next week. All right. So I pray that that was a blessing, fam. I wanted to cover more of Abraham and Nimrod, but it's a lot. But I know I keep saying that, but it's a lot to dig into to really get a solid foundation about what we're dealing with here. And I don't want to rush it. So I hope that it was beneficial. Hallelujah. Okay, Coach Latasha, you got your hand up. Come on to the mic.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you, baby.
Okay, I just had a question. I think it was in Jasher 9 when he was talking to, when you were saying that Abraham knew Yahuah from 3 years old, but he went to Noah and Shem at 10. So for those 7 years, was he just in the cave and Yahuah was coming to teach him, or was his mother and the nurse teaching him?
I took that to mean that I'm sorry, give me 1 second, sis. Okay, fam. I'm sorry. So let's go back to that real quick. It says in verse 6, is that what you're talking about? Where it says Abraham was in Noah's house for 39 years. Abraham knew the master from 3. And you're saying since he went to them at the age of 10, how did he know him? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, I mean, like, was Yahuah or the Ruach coming to teach Abraham for those 7 years before he went with Noah and Shem, or was his mother and the nurse teaching him, because they was from the line of Shem as well, but they wasn't, I guess, as we say, they wasn't practicing.
Yeah, those are good guesses. I would guess the same because they don't tell us specifically either one.
I don't know, like, when I heard that, the image that got in my mind was, well, first off, it's 2 women taking care of him.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, they had the ability to go out there and hunt some meat, or not go out there, hunt some meat and do all that, like, this is mama and Cana'an.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got the fact that they're king. So the first image that came to my mind was something like, say that it was a night, a fire just kind of came out of nowhere. Or, you know what I'm saying? Or like in the case of the Hebrews were coming out of Egypt, and they had that big old column of cloud just keeping them
manifestations. Nice cool. Yeah.
In the middle of the desert.
Yeah. That's very possible. I would believe that, like I say, since they don't tell us one or the other, I would personally believe it's probably a combination of those. I also would lean to the possibility that even though Terah worshipped all the gods that they worshipped, Terah also still knew and worshiped Yah. He just didn't separate Yah and only worship Yah.
Well, I have a question.
Yeah, real quick, and just to add to that, it also tells us that Terah came and brought them provisions. So it wasn't that Terah was absent. He still had to stay somewhere around where Nimrod could see or feel like things were still normal, right? So he went there, but he couldn't stay there. So I would think that, yeah, he was still being taught by his family members, but through the Ruach, as you said, Koti Latasha, Abraham began to discern that some of what they saying made sense, and some of what they said was of no value for his learning. Right. Does that answer your question? Well, not really an answer. I'm kind of agreeing with what you said.
Yeah. Yes. And then I had another question. So you know how with Nimrod wanting to slay Abraham as a baby, because he wanted to stop the priesthood. But didn't that same spirit try to do that with Abel, but then God brought forth Seth?
Yep. How you gonna stop?
So I mean, so you can't really stop what he has planned,
No,
even if it wasn't through
condemn
Abraham.
yourself. Yeah. Yeah, that's the only thing you do is condemn yourself, because it's still gonna be counted against you. But then again, that's the other part of it. It's like, okay, so you got the game. Like, even if they went through with it and they were able to kill Abram, they would have got the game. Like, you would have got the immediate gain, and you would also got the stain on your book of reckoning, so that on the day of judgment, there's another one against you. You killed the prophets, right? Yeah. What was your other question?
Right. Okay.
The deities that Nimrod was having their worship, did he just kill them out of his
I don't think so.
like actual?
Remember his mother was.
Okay, remember that's accurate, but also remember these deities were being worshipped from before Genesis 6. These are the same fallen angels and their children who were gods in the earth. The flood killed the physical vessels. Archpashad found the writings that was of those same deities that taught him how to worship the deities of the zodiac. They were the exact same ones. Archpashad hid those away from his father and then began to teach them and disseminate them to the children of men. These were the same deities, yes. The 12 zodiacs. Call them one thing in this language, something else in those languages. You could go over there in China and deal with, the Chinese zodiac. It's the same deities. Roman, Greek, Egyptian, same deities, different language. Remember, Babylon, they confused the language, but they were worshiping the same thing before they confused the languages. So now take the worship of those same gods, and now that Yahuah confused those languages, now you just calling the same gods a different name. And so that's why I keep emphasizing that it's important to understand attributes. Because if you understand the attribute of the deity that you're talking about, it's going to be the same deity no matter what the name is, right? Jesus has attributes. If you figure out his attributes, you'll find out what deity that is. It's not Yahushua. It's just a fact. They don't have the same attributes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Earlier, I think I want to say this. Do you believe Josh should choose me? But it's really like it cost Shem Noah's oldest son.
Yes, we talked about that last week. Yes. Japhet was Noah's oldest son. Ham was Noah's youngest son. Shem was who Noah put his confidence in. And so we read in some places that it lists him as the oldest son, but scripturally it shows that Japhet was born before Shem. Since you say time passed quickly, man, they over here about to scratch their eyes out. This took so long. I'm joking.
Anyway, we got 3 Keishas in the room.
Don't you start with me.
I just noticed that. Do we really have 3 Keishas?
We gonna start calling y'all K1 through 12.
I know. It's 3. We got a no Keisha. Where did the no Keisha come from? There's 3 Keishas in the room, y'all. No, the other Keisha.
Did y'all have any more questions or comments?
Oh, okay.
You said you got another observation? Okay.
It seemed like after Rob had the other baby killed, he kind of upped the ante with his loyalty to
Yeah.
Nimrod by creating the different deities fact that he was
So he was
harboring,
still, yeah.
harboring an enemy of the state.
Threat to national security.
Yeah, it kind of seemed like he just kind of like, because like I said earlier, he still knew of God and what he was
I believe
about.
that.
So it kind of just seemed like he was just
Yeah.
trying to, I don't know what the word is, but basically play Nimrod.
I believe that to a degree that was part of what he was doing, but I also believe that Terah worshiped those deities. Like I believe that even though in my mind I want to say Terah probably worshiped Yah, I believe that he didn't esteem Yah. Like we talked about the difference between acknowledging and esteeming, right? Again, Haran knew of Yah. Terah knew of Yah. Ishmael knew of Yah. His father would have taught him about Yah. Esau would have knew of Yah, right? And so there's some things within the belief system of Islam that are very closely related to what we believe, because their father knew some things, but he did not esteem Yah. And therefore, in his heart, was the scripture we're talking about, 1 Thessalonians? Because they lack the love of the truth, therefore Yahuah give them over to a strong delusion, right? So if you don't love this in the way that, I'm old, right? KRS got a song called Love's Gonna Get You. Love's gonna get you. Love's gonna get you. Love's gonna get you. Love's gonna love. Y'all remember that song? You don't remember that song. You remember that song?
I remember.
Coach T. Joe, you remember that song? You don't remember that song? Of course you don't. You're a child. Of course you don't. Okay. So he says, you know what? A lot of people say, I love this, so I love that. I love that car. I just love that girl. He said, you know, if you don't be careful, love's gonna get you. If somebody loves their car, man, like what they gonna do to it?
Pimp it out.
They're gonna pimp it out. They're gonna be out there waxing it every Sunday.
Man, they gonna run it through the car wash every day.
Friday night before they go out, I'm waxing that thing down,
They gonna check the oil.
shampooing it, checking the oil, shampooing it up, changing them seats out, putting some leathers in there, cutting the sunroof. When they love it, they're gonna take care of it, right? They're going to cherish it and they're going to take care of it. So when that scripture says, because they have not the love of the truth, it's not saying they didn't listen to the truth. It's not saying they didn't know the truth. But if they have a love for the truth, you're going to cherish it. You're going to nurture it. You're going to take care of it. You're going to grow it. You're going to grow your understanding of it to the point where it's in you. You have an intimate knowledge of it. You've become intimate with it, right? And if you have not become intimate with it, or if you're not on the way to becoming intimate with it, then you need to question whether or not you have a love for the truth. What it means to love the truth is to become intimate with it. We need to be scholars in this. If we believe that we are the nation of Israel and the priest in the earth, we need to become scholars with this. And Terah wasn't. I mean, he was dabbling in it.
He was offensive.
He was offensive. Yeah. I'm over here today. I'm over there tomorrow. What the shake? The what? The who doing what? Over there the next day.
Took Abram up to Noah and Shem, like, yeah, I'm still,
Yeah.
good, I'm studying my scripture.
And think about that. I mean, I'm putting them in the hands of somebody who I feel like is more capable to raise them in the truth, because I'm not capable. I'm sending them to you. You know, you be over there. That way he can learn about your God. Yeah, send it to his grandpa. And then come on, Koti.
No, I was going to say when she was saying about Terah, but you knew even when Abraham came back and he destroyed his gods and how he felt about it. So like you said, Terah knew of Yah, but he didn't esteem Yah. And he was so upset and distraught that Abraham destroyed his gods. He was going to turn him over to Nimrod. But I don't think we got to that part yet, did we?
No,
I went too far.
You spoiling it again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She don't know that part yet. We're going to get to that. next week. But yeah, so that lets you know how Terah felt about him, because he was upset.
Right.
He was upset with
He was
Abraham.
real mad.
But when Abraham broke it down to him in the way he did with understanding, he couldn't refute him.
Mm-hmm.
He could not refute Abraham, which lets you know Abraham had gone off and come back studied. And he was like, Pop,
Well,
what's going here don't make sense.
right, because even when Abraham told him, well, I'm not going to spoil it, but when Abraham told him, like, I didn't do that, your God did that.
Right.
They was in here fighting over the food. I ain't going to spoil it.
Right. No, it's all good. We there now. Yeah. He told him. He said, you know that that's wood, and that wood don't move. And Abraham said, well, what you worshiping them for? If you know that, which I figured you did, why is we fixing meals and whatnot and sacrificing meat? Yeah, good, perfectly good meat to this wood, this wood, and here was the sentiment. He said this wood couldn't save itself. How is it saving you? Yep.
Right. Because Sarah was like, how did he do it? He can't even move. And Abraham was like, well, then what are you doing?
Yep.
And I think that's when Sarah cooled on. But I ain't going to spoil it because they say I'm about to get kicked out.
Who? They say you about to get kicked out?
Yeah.
That's because he get more again on
As long as you ain't in here pulling no wishbones and rubbing no stones, you good.
Yeah, we good.
I ain't gonna say you can't get kicked out, because a wicked spirit come over anybody. But nah, not for what you doing. Don't come in here with chicken bones and we good.
So I found a new way. We got some Hebrew crystals over here.
Okay. No, it's all good, sis. It's all good. Anybody else? Observations?
My man heard the microwave.
I haven't eaten. I mean, I nibbled this morning. Y'all been eating right in front of me. Look at, they had some good smelling lasagna over here. I was like, ooh, that smells good.
I ain't want to eat no lasagna on camera.
Okay, fam. Well, we're gonna pick it up. Go ahead. I was trying to wait.
Are we recording when we go to Sukkot?
I'm sure we probably record some. And y'all welcome to record if y'all want to record. My children. Y'all welcome to record if y'all want to record, and yeah, we can share our experiences. I'm good with that.
Okay.
Y'all ready for it? Y'all getting excited?
I am.
Hallelujah.
Yes.
No, sis. Man, look, praise Yah. This is like I say, we just sharing our study. That's all. This not about us. So I pray it's beneficial. I pray it's uplifting to the body, and I'm happy to do it. Even on my fragrance of sleep that I had, no real sleep. I sniffed sleep a little bit, and then woke up.
When I looked at the time, it said 4 a.m. I said, "Oh, we still on here?"
But it was good. I was cool with it because it was a good conversation, and
it was so good.
If that occultee was being honest, she said she wasn't offended. So I say hallelujah. And I know that y'all tried your hardest, and I know we tried our hardest not to offend, while still being as honest as we could and sharing truth with her. Came. That's what it felt like. We was fighting for her and trying to help her arm herself with scriptures specifically, to understand some things that Pastor probably is not telling her. And the crazy thing is, like, he obviously is giving them some truth. And so that makes it even more difficult, because if somebody feels like they getting fed and you trying to tell them they eating artificial sweetener, soylent green artificial sweetener and empty calories, and they steady saying, no, it's good, I'm eating over here, and you tell them, no, that's that That's that highly processed stuff over there. That ain't good food. It's hard to get through to them when they feel like they are getting fed. It's easy to get through to somebody that feel like they know past the line. Like, nah, I've been felt like past the line. Tell me something. What you got? Because I know it's something else out there. But when somebody feel like Pastor telling them the truth, that's a little bit more difficult conversation, you know. So I think y'all did a good job, and I think Rib did a good job, and I think she heard. It may just be that it need to sink in. It need to be watered. She got to digest it, and that's not our job. You know what I'm saying? And it's not about her coming back here today or even coming back and tuning in Friday, you know, to make us feel like, you know, we did something. It ain't about us. It's about y'all. So if she 5 years down the line come to know y'all, hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Wherever she wound up, however she wound up studying, you know, as long as she studying. Maybe she all talking to Pastor today, shaking things up at the church. You never know.
Yeah, I was about to say,
She
to go
might-
have a conversation with our pastor.
Yeah, she might be putting together them scriptures that we were sharing with her last night, so she can go get kicked out tomorrow when they go to service. She might be on a mission. I don't know.
On a mission. Just one question sometimes turn a person like whole mental around and change everything. Just one.
Gang, absolutely. Absolutely. I know it did for me.
Did she say she came to the to study with us last night? Like how she found out, or is she part of Kodesh Conversations? I didn't get a chance to stay in here, but did she say?
Yep, yeah. She did. She came through Koti Rib books, and she explained why she through the reading of the books which she received from it. Yeah. So that's how she ended up. I think she was part of the Hebrew Guy Rib book club, and she clicked on the link because she was emailing back and forth with Koti Rib, and she invited her over to study under the scriptures.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Oh, she had a beautiful testimony. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I was trying to decide whether or not I was going to leave it as part of the studying scripture episode or edit it out. But I'm probably going to leave it because it was beautiful. And like she said, she was happy to ask her questions, and she was happy to get the feedback. So I think I'm going to leave it. Maybe it'll help somebody else. She had really good questions, and everybody had really good answers.
Well, like I was saying last night, you know, the seed has definitely been planted. And I can honestly say that the last person that planted that seed for me was the same, you know. It was through Rib's books that that last seed grabbed me. And it took me a year of starting to study scripture for myself. And then I was able to shut out all the background noise and focus on this. So that's why I'm saying, like, when I was making a comment about she sounds so much like my testimony, that it was scary because it was the same way. Like I said, I first got the seed planted at 13 in a Pentecostal church by a Pentecostal minister. She's the first person that told me, you know, like, hey, this book is written about you. I mean, she had visual aids and everything to explain that. Now, the rest of the church wasn't going off of that. You know what I mean? My parents, my grandparents, they weren't going off of that. So even though the seed was planted, that it started making me ask other questions, it still didn't take root. You understand what I'm saying? And then through the years, I got into it with one of my very good friends. Me and him were in the military, call ourselves brother and sister, everything. He converted about 10 years ago, and he planted a seed. And I mean, he and I got into it real bad over the name of Jesus. And I was just like, look, I'm not Hebrew. I don't understand Hebrew. So I'm calling it as I see it. You know what I mean? And that was my stance on the situation. Like I said, it took years. But once that seed was planted for me at 13, that's where I kept questioning things. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, why? Who said this, or why was this done, or you know what I'm saying? So it may take a while, you know, and like I said, that last seed was planted in 2019 when I picked up, you know, that book by Rib. and I just started searching. I was like, nah, it don't say that, you know, and I started picking up, and it was just like, the rest of the story was background noise for me, because every scripture that she put in those books is what my mind focused on and picked up on. And that's what made me start picking up things, you know. I had to go back and reread the books and re-listen to the stories because I was so focused on scriptures and trying to find all these scriptures and stuff that I didn't even, you know, hear the original or read the original books. It was crazy how everything worked. And I did it all while laying on my deathbed. They literally had told me I was dying. And that book snatched me. And literally I was laying in the bed and I had this extensive library because according to the doctors, my husband needed to, you know, get all my stuff in order because this was it. November 2019, I was toxic. I had toxemia. It was toxic. And I was laying there and I was reading the book, and it was like how she said in the stories how the T's and stuff were lighting up. Well, that's how her scriptures was blinging at me. It was just like the stories, the scriptures was just blinging. And I was just like, let me pick up, because I don't remember that saying that, you know? And I went from there.
I was trying to finish swallowing my water. Yeah, that's what they were supposed to do. So hallelujah. That's a beautiful work she put in, and that was the ultimate goal. So it accomplished that. Hallelujah. Akoti Antoinette, did I see your hand up? Shabbat shalom. I see y'all. Have a blessed Shabbat. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm trying to wait on you, big sis. Did you have something you wanted to, or did she leave already? Coach Antoinette, did you have something you wanted to bring to the mic?
I just want to say that, you know, everybody comes into it at their own time.
Right.
And if it's for, she'll come back. Because like he was saying, I mean, I've been knowing the truth in a sense since I was like 12. You know, I told you my father has been in the truth. But living in different households and, you know, so on and so forth. But it was like my soul was always crying for something different. It knew that this was not, you know, this was not for me, that I needed something else. So, you know, eventually, like she said, then, you know, my moment was, I was listening to this, you know, the Hebrew griot. And when she was teaching the father, it was like, this is what I know what I need. This is what I need. This is it. So that's why I said she may need to digest it. You know, when I was 13, I wanted to be an Egyptologist, you know, because I knew that we were more than slaves, put it like that. I knew we were more than slaves. So I got into Egyptology. You know, then into the Nubians, and you know, it's a slow. Sometimes you get it right away, and sometimes you have to get there, as they say.
Right.
I challenged my cousin, who is the pastor of our church. I said, you know, Jesus' birthday ain't on the 25th. Why are we doing this? Right. And you know, he explained, well, you know, we don't know when his birthday is, but this is the day we choose. And you know, then you say, oh, okay, well, you know, the devil say that kind of makes sense, don't it? And you say, well, yeah, you know, we would never be able to know when it actually was. So, you know, we just pick a day and everybody do it. And then,
Right.
you know, the same with Easter. I was like, well, wait a minute now. If it's 3 days and this is this, you know, and I'm counting in my head and I'm like, well, hold on. And then, you know, then they give you another explanation. So, you know, it take you a minute because, like you said, this is my cousin. Right. All of my uncles, you know, and aunties, they first ladies, and you know, I was on the deacons board, you know, I mean, they on the deacons board, and I was on the pastor's aide, you know, every Sunday, you know, you in church, but it was like I always knew that I wasn't getting fed.
Yeah, I
wasn't getting fed. I was there, but I wasn't getting fed. I knew what they said, but it wasn't feeding me. So when you finally get to that place where you get fed,
you know,
like hot dogs, I've been eating hot dogs and Ritz crackers, and I done finally got me some lamb, and you know, I'm eating good. You know, I'm actually getting the word.
Hallelujah. Yeah, you know when something somebody don't make sense, right? Like and I believe we all got similar testimonies to some degree. I was about 12 as well when in the church I was asking questions and the answers I was getting just didn't make sense. It's like I hear what you're telling me, but deep within that doesn't have the ring of truth. And on top of that, you didn't even say it convincingly. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you said it in a way that was just like to get me to move on to the next topic, right? And children understand more than what adults give them credit for. You can grab a hold of children's attention by simply telling the truth. You know, if you don't know, you don't know. That's one thing. But you know, I know people that even delayed telling their children what they were studying about this because they thought that it would make their children look at them differently or whatever. And in my experience and Rib's experience, and my thoughts have always been that the children would appreciate the truth more so than you continuing with the tradition, the traditional lie. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know when I was in that position, I didn't appreciate the traditional answers, right? I got that you telling me the same thing as
you know what he told me once I told him that I was a Hebrew Israelite. Mm-hmm. He said, y'all believe in Christ, y'all believe in Jesus, right? I said, yeah. He said, well, that's good enough for me. He said, if this is what's making you happy, he said, I'm good with it. So that tells you something right there, don't it?
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay, fam. Look, beautiful testimonies. Beautiful testimonies all around. And I pray that sister is on a path to eventually be able to have her own testimony of awakening. That's the prayer. You know? Shalom, family. I'm gonna go ahead and shut it down. We will get it edited and posted for y'all to review it and to share it with whoever y'all think might enjoy it. Love y'all all and thank you for joining us. Always a pleasure.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, y'all. Have a blessed day.
I say yes. I'm too blessed to be stressed. Nevertheless, I must confess. Yes, this is Project Wake Up Jacob. On the Sabbath we rest and reflect upon his goodness. Because we are guided by the Ruach Kodesh. Yes, whenever I get dressed, yes, I'm dripping Kodesh fresh. Yes, this style fit me down to a T. Because I'm a ruffian, discussing precepts from the holy manual of his constructions. And TZ's cover 4 corners of my garment. Greet me with shalom before you step into my carpet. Yah is not the author of confusion. I beg your pardon, but Yahuah Zabaoth can stop it before it's even thought about.
Too blessed to be stressed because I've been blessed by the best. I'm Kodesh fresh.